77% of US 17 to 24-year-olds could not join the military. The American Department of Defense recently did an analysis of 17 to 24-year-olds and found that 77% were unqualified to serve in the military due mostly to obesity, drug abuse, physical health, or mental health. Almost half were disqualified for more than one of those reasons.
Yeah. This is, when we talk about strategic level issues like national security problems, anybody looking at that number, from the SEAL teams to the Green Berets to Ranger, those select their populations from a larger general population from combat arms. Combat arms gets their people from this larger population of people. So like as the arrowhead gets a little bit more narrow, the availability of people to fund these small groups, to these middle-sized groups, to these potentially larger groups are just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. This is, we're going to lose to everybody if this trend continues. We can't win wars with the bodies that we have.
Because the catchment area of the normal people feeds into the catchment area of the normal soldiers, feeds into the catchment area of the semi-elite, into the absolutely elite. And if the bottom rung of the ladder, which is population, is bad, that trickles all the way up to the very top.
Yeah, the Department of Defense is always a parallel. It's just a reflection of what society is at large, right? When you look at society at large right now, they are just that. They are very large. They're obese. They're gelatinous blobs of broken minds. They don't know if they're a boy or a girl. They definitely have never jumped out of a tree before. So when they go to airborne school and they land on a static line jump and they break both their legs, it's because they've never done it before. You know, you and I grew up chasing kids and like smacking each other with sticks, you know, and this generation hasn't done that. So they're just weaker in every form of the word. I know every generation says this, but right now, statistically, we've never had a data point to show like that it has ever been this bad. So now I know like the World War II guys were like, those Vietnam guys are a bunch of pussies, you know, and then the Vietnam guys are like, oh man, those GWOT guys are a bunch of pussies. And the GWOT guys are like, man, all these millennials and Gen Zs are a bunch of like, but they really are. But this is a real big problem and we don't know how to fix it.
How much do you lay at the feet of the population with this? Because lots of people probably would like to be fitter if they knew what that would feel like. They would like to have better mental health if they knew what that would feel like. But they weren't aware. They weren't given the tools. There are distractions and environmental issues, technology, screens, social media, porn, video games. All of these things are relatively new inventions that didn't have to be contended with by World War II or Vietnam or even early millennials. So how do you think about it, sort of individual agency versus environmental stimulus and restrictions and stuff?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both, right? I don't think you could point to a specific thing and be like, this is the thing that's causing the biggest problem. You know, from social media to pornography to, iPad, screen time, diet, like the food that we're eating right now is poison. Literally, the things that are in our food is illegal in most other countries, but it's legal here. They're not allowed to export it. You know, if you go to Japan or you go to Italy, a bunch of American foods aren't even allowed to be imported there because they know the things that are in them are so disgusting. There's a hilarious video meme of these Italian moms comparing American pasta to the pasta that they make, and they could not be more dissimilar. They're like, this is not pasta. Like, we don't know what these ingredients are, but this is not like, we use flour and a little bit of salt, you know, and we throw some eggs in there, and then here's the process of us making pasta. And like, this is poison. So I think it's a combination of a whole bunch of things. And then the society culture problem is another gigantic piece. We have the culture of being an American has changed in the past 30 years in a really negative way. You know, where it used to be family first, you know, like the nuclear family was the cornerstone of American society. And like there was the motivations for a male figure in the household, like he's going to be a provider, he's going to be a protector, he's going to preserve his family, you know, like he's obviously going to be sex driven. So he's like trying to be a masculine person in the household. On the opposite end of that spectrum, the woman would embrace being feminine. You know, the kids respected the parents. If you look at pop culture right now, like Chris, could you point to a single television show that paints a parent in a positive light? I mean, think of every single show on Netflix, Disney, Amazon, the longest running show currently.
It's all flawed. Even the heroes in superhero movies it's a Suicide Squad, right? It's a Deadpool with Ryan Reynolds. No one can just be, I mean, the closest thing that we got was Top Gun, I guess.
Yeah.
That was it.
And he's broken, but
yes.
And that's definitely an anomaly. Like that's on the outside of the average. That's the outliers. You look at Homer, like the longest running cartoon TV series right now. When you go into his brain, he's motivated by three things: beer, donuts, and cluelessness. He's the idiot in the whole entire family. And from Modern Family to
Family Guy.
Yeah, every single one of them. Like the parent figure is the most disgusting, despicable person there. So of course that's going to naturally be eroding the view of this generational passing of information. That generational gap from grandparents to children used to be very commonplace, right? Like I learned how to magnetize a screwdriver. I learned how to charge a battery. I learned like the tricks and the trades of like how to hold a hammer and how one hammer was different than a different hammer. And that hammer was specific to a job. And, while my dad could have taught me that, it was actually my grandpa that did that. And I was able to receive that easier from my grandpa than it was my own father. And that's how it has been for hundreds of years until now. Now you see no, kind of cross-pollination of ideas from one generation to two generations ago, from like the grandparents to the grandchild. And that's tragic. There's a huge loss of information there.
Well, the desire for people to move out at age 16 or 18 or 20 and be in a different country. I mean, I say this as someone who is in a different country, but pan-generational living in some commune-style small village would have been the way that everything was done. Do you know what the grandmother hypothesis is? It's one of the reasons or the evolutionary justifications for why women go through menopause.
No.
Right. So there's a question to be asked. Most animals aren't able to continue to reproduce while their reproduction doesn't stop while they're still alive. Their capacity to reproduce ceases at the same time that they die, typically. Whereas for humans, you have this weird period, 40s for women, 40s to 50s, where they're still about. So you'd think, well, they're a drain on resources and they're no longer contributing any more kin. So what are they here for? And the argument is that human child rearing is so complex and alloparenting needs to be done, which is the shared parenting of kids from mothers to grandmothers to aunties and close friends, that what you actually need is a grandmother in that sort of matriarch, head of the household position who is able to deal with the interpersonal political backbiting of 10 women below her that are part of her family and telling them what to do and helping to raise the children and coordinating stuff like that. So that's a very important role whilst not still continuing to produce children. Yeah. So it's so important to the way that humans develop that it's literally built into female biology.
Yeah.
That's how important it is.
You see it culturally, if you go to Native American tribes, when a girl is having her first period, the grandmother would take that child away and teach her all of okay, this is how you take care of yourself. This is during this period of 5 to 7 days, you're going to be drinking extra water. This is how you clean yourself. And you go down to South America, a bunch of cultures down there. They're actually traditional tribal periods where that granddaughter would go to the grandmother and she would spend a week or 2 weeks with this grandmother, learning all of the birds and bees of life. And that transfer of knowledge about how to raise a child, about how to take care of their body, about what this cycle looks like what is going on in America, where now we look at the prior generation as these old broken idiots that you can just walk up to on the street in New York and slam them in the face, which we see all the time. It's been an erosion of respect of these other generations.
There's an interesting trend. I found this article about conscription for Gen Z and some of the feedback that Gen Z gave about that. I'm going to war for Rishi Sunak. Give your head a wobble. I've got things to do, said 23-year-old TikToker Charlie Malo in a widely shared video she posted on a platform over the weekend. I'm gay, she continued. I'm Northern and I will play those cards. 26-year-old content creator Ayame P uploaded a similar video. I'm sitting here naked eating a bowl of yogurt, she begins, reading about how we might have to go to war. They want to send me, a little girl, to the front line. The army is simply no longer seen as a moral endeavor. As a 24-year-old, the last war in my living memory was not a barnstorming defeat of the Nazis, but rather a series of wars and invasions in the Middle East, exposed as failures and widely thought to be based on lies. The belief held by older generations that the British army is solely a force for good in the world does not stand up anymore. As Gen Z would put it, the military propaganda is not propaganda-ing.
Yeah. The what a entitled little pricks. How sad is that? There should be a yearning to serve. I found nothing more meaningful in my life than finding opportunities to do good to somebody or for something that is bigger or better than myself. And I've, as an individual, have found growth in those times more so than anything else in life. But a whole bunch of people right now don't want to serve anyone but themselves. They want to build a brand, they want food delivered to their door. It's just so short-sighted in realizing that sometimes it takes time to develop who you are as a person. And that development comes from struggle and failure and service. On the military front, you don't think that those young men and women coming out of the Great Depression had things to do when they learned that Nazis were flooding across the borders throughout Europe? You don't think that during the Korean War, as America has the largest economic boom in history, in the history of our species, that Americans didn't have something to do besides fight communism in a land that most people had never even heard of before. Go to Vietnam, the ones that were then conscripted, the draft occurs and hundreds of thousands of people had no choice but to go serve their country. You don't think they had better things to do as like the great awakening of cultures happened in the 60s and 70s? We're fighting for civil rights. We're fighting for the rights of women. We're fighting for transparency within the government. We lose one of the greatest presidents our country's ever had. Like, all of this is in real tough times. But I get that you want to sit there naked and eat your yogurt. But you think that that's more important than what was happening previously? Like, they didn't have other things to do? It's so pathetic and childish. I just look at it like a petulant child.
How would you how do you think about fixing the culture and the populace's perspective of the armed forces and service?
Yeah, I think it's a communication problem on Department of Defense side. I think we failed to clearly show what we do. Like, people look at my resume and be like, man, that guy, all he's done his adult life is gone overseas and killed. That's the furthest thing from the truth. There have been periods where I had to do that to create stability and security within a nation. But why? Why were we doing that? It was to give that place an opportunity to exist, where democracy could have a foothold, where a hook could be set, and that place had a chance to live. The more secure and the more stable a world has, a country like ours that is built off capitalism has more countries to do commerce with. But on the human rights side of it, with stability and security comes opportunity for young girls to learn how to read, for young men to find occupations besides working within terrorism or slinging some form of human suffering. And we have to communicate to that gay girl eating yogurt naked on her couch, what does it look like to serve? And I think they'd be blown away to realize that we go to some of the most downtrodden cultures on the planet and give them a chance. We give them opportunity. We create something that they've never had in their, like, if you were born in America, you won the lottery. Like, you're in the safest, richest place on the planet to have ever existed. Like, you look one continent to our east, slightly south, and you can't go to a country that doesn't have, when I say like third world poor, I'm not talking like favelas in Brazil. I'm talking like they're one meal away from starving to death. And starving to death, when we say, man, I'm so hungry, I'm starving to death means like you are so malnourished that if you even eat a meal, it might kill you because your body can't process the calories that are in it. They've never seen suffering and human desperation like we see all over the world, and we get to go to that place and give them a chance. It's like, how do you tell a girl that's sitting there on TikTok? I don't know.
I think the presumption, what it sounds like the presumption is this is, colonial powers. It's something to do with oil. This is, the military industrial complex trying to take over some country. It doesn't sound like aid. It doesn't sound like liberation. It doesn't sound like assistance or medicine or healthcare or any of those things. What it sounds like is just more colonialism going on, white people invading brown people. That's what war is.
Yeah. Colonialism has existed for forever. And some of the greatest things to happen to some countries were them being conquered and then settled, and then commerce occurs. And then for the first time, that country isn't tribally just killing each other. It's really easy to label any form of expansion of a country or an idea or a culture negatively. There are cultures that are better than other cultures. I know we're supposed to be super inclusive. I could list a couple dozen cultures that are so disgusting and so evil where, a 67-year-old man can have 5, 10 wives. And guess what? Those wives are little girls. As soon as they have their first period, they're eligible to be sold and married to this dude. You please tell me that it would not be better for Britain or for America or for Mexico to go over and settle that country. It would be 100% better, and the people there would be better off for it. But we have to appreciate all these cultures. We definitely don't assume any of these. No, there are better cultures, and the world would be better off. It would be a more peaceful place. Not everybody has to be westernized. That's not what I'm saying. But there are evil ideas, and there are evil religions, and there are evil cultures. And man, I just wish that. But there are also shared values. There are norms that are beautiful, that transcend cultures and transcend countries and transcend borders. And those ideals, like murder is wrong, rape is wrong, those ideas are not wrong in some cultures. Well, those cultures are evil.
Yeah, I wonder what needs to happen from a messaging perspective. It certainly needs to maybe highlight at least two things that I can think of. One being the honor in making a bad place better. And the second one being the sort of heroism and sense of purpose and meaning that people who do that get. Yeah. Because it seems strange that an entire culture, an entire generation can talk about meaninglessness, purposelessness, hopelessness. 60% of teenage girls say that they have regular or persistent feelings of hopelessness. I think 30% of girls in that same age bracket have seriously considered taking their own lives. If that's the case, surely one of the things that a lot of people in the armed forces say is the most meaningful thing, probably maybe except for family, that they do, well, that seems like a pretty good antidote to me. But I guess what it sounds like, what it looks like to people who haven't had the messaging put across in the right way is, this is just hard things for bad ends.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything more dangerous than a young man or woman without purpose. There's nothing that will destroy and erode that person's future than their lack of purpose. There's also nothing more beautiful, and I'll just talk to young men specifically, than a young man with purpose. Like during the Holocaust, when those rumors started coming across the Atlantic that Jews were being put on trains and taken to no one knows where, but nobody sees them again, but we see towers of smoke coming out of these places like Auschwitz. And young men are like, no, fuck no. Yeah, I'll storm beaches, I'll climb cliffs, I'll jump out of airplanes for the first time behind enemy lines with equipment that's never been used before in a form of warfare that's never been tried. Because this is my purpose, is to do good. Where is that? We see on the opposite end of that spectrum, young men without purpose that then get angry and get bitter, and they start having resentment against specific groups and people, whether it's the color of their skin or their religion, and then they walk into a school or a church or a movie theater and they start hurting people. That's a broken young man without purpose. But a man with purpose, man, he's gonna figure out that you can fly a plane off this little tiny island in North Carolina. He's gonna figure out that he can step off this ladder and jump into almost weightlessness on a surface of a moon that nobody stepped on before. Like that's purpose. What was the purpose? We're in an arms race against the Russians. The space race was an arms race, but that was purpose. It was an idea that we can do something significant to improve America. Fill yourself with something more important than yourself and pour everything that you are into it. And that's purpose. And with that, like I'm filled with purpose and I'm filled with joy and I'm filled with hope and I'm filled with love and I'm filled with grace. But all of that is a byproduct of purpose. Like you can't be sitting there and be like, I'm depressed. I'm thinking about suicide. Like I'm feeling hopeless. I could write 1,000 different ideas that you could dedicate your life to, and it would be a life worth living. Like go and do great things.
A lot of that's from service, it seems.
Exactly.
But the point is that in the modern culture,
try this thing.
Get that thing inside of you. Go on.
Okay.
Put it in.
You sure you want this?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Go on.
I know I'm always like hard already, and they're like, "Do you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna give this guy
Don't
a little
say
bit
you're
of caffeine."
hard already.
Not like figuratively, but also literally. I meant. That's good.
That'll do.
Yeah.
That's what we want. You'll be dialed in now. Oh yeah. Feel that coursing through your veins. So we have a culture which is very individuated, very individualized. People are atomized from their family, from their culture, from their history, and from each other as well. If you're fucking citizen number 233,000 living in your pod, bleeping away, that shared sense of purpose, it doesn't surprise me that that's not the case. But you look to other cultures that are competitors. This Gwinder Bogle, one of my friends, wrote an amazing article about TikTok, and the spinach talk equivalent that they have in China is showing people being proud of their country and people doing cool science stuff and people building technology and young people.
Pornography bad, sleep good, family good.
Well, video games, have you seen when they can play video games in China? Yeah, it's between, I think, 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And
4 days a week, 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
That's it.
And it's outside of those times, it's just not on. Yeah. It's like you can't, it's like the fucking someone's unplugged the power. Yeah. It's like the ultimate parent. It's wild. And thinking, okay, is what we have now with the degrees of freedom? You're someone that very much, wants people to have freedom and has fought for it a lot.
I like that freedom stuff.
But that multiplicity of options and lack of constraint just causes people to sort of race to the bottom of the pleasure stem, right? So there's a bit of there's a paradox going on here that some of the authoritarian dictatorial tendencies are actually enabling the population in some ways to be better.
Yeah. I will never say that the government is a solution for anything. If we think that it would be a better solution to give the government authority to go into households and say how much time they should be on screens or who they should call, like that goes against every ounce of what I believe and what I think it means to be an American. And in the preamble of the Constitution, we the people, like the people really were badasses. They carved their existence out of the wilderness. They fought bears and they fought Indians. And then they were told that they were going to be taxed a certain amount. And they're like, no. And then we'll throw this tea in the harbor. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to have this little problem in Boston and an American's going to get shot. Now you pissed us off. We're going to kill all of you and we're going to kick you off the continent. Like we, the people, were a bunch of badasses. There was individual responsibility for those people. They're well-read, they're well-traveled. For you to vote, you had to be a landowner. You knew how to shoot a gun. You were required to own a gun and to train with that gun.
You were required to own a gun.
To own a gun. If you were a voting member, you had to own a gun and you had to train with it. And there was a dedicated day off for the entire country. Every single person had a dedicated day to go out and train. And there were some inherent responsibilities to being a citizen, to being we the people. Now we're just like, somebody's going to do it for me. Somebody's going to take care of this problem. Somebody's going to solve this world problem. Somebody's going to tell me how much I'm supposed to eat or what I'm supposed to eat. That responsibility, we've just been handing over bit by bit for the past 40 years. And now we don't know how to take it back. And responsibility is where freedom comes from. You can't be free unless you are self-sufficient. You cannot be free unless you're individually responsible. You can't be free from the government being able to tell you how you're supposed to be healthy unless you're healthy. Like I can look at somebody saying, hey, you need to put this in your body. And I could be like, no, I don't. I'm freaking jacked and I'm going to live until I'm 100. Hey, you need to put this in your kids' bodies. I'm like, my kid has a 6-pack, can speak a couple of languages and plays 5 sports. Like he doesn't need what you're giving him, man. Like he eats free-range chicken, elk, bison. You're like, I promise you, whatever you're trying to give him, he doesn't want. But we can do that because we're in a position of authority as with sovereignty, and then take that into any other category, whether it's intellectual or education. And like, hey, you have to be educated in this way. No, the way that you're educating those kids is dumb. All of the kids that we educate are way smarter than your dumb kids. I don't want what you're trying to sell us because we do it better. But that's sovereignty. And that is us taking back those freedoms and taking back that authority and be like, you don't get that. You can't tell me what to do because I do it better.
This episode is brought to you by Ketone IQ. 60% of Tour de France riders use Ketone IQ to help them with their energy and mental clarity. And that's why I use it as my pre-workout. I don't want to have caffeine upon waking, but I still want to have energy to make sure that I have a good session, which is why I use this. Gives me really clean energy. There's no jitters. There's no crash afterward. And it massively helps with mental clarity. Ketones are the brain and body's preferred fuel source, but getting into a state of ketosis is hard. You often have to fast for a long time or restrict carb intake or exercise your glycogen stores away, but that can take days. Ketone IQ delivers ketones to your bloodstream within minutes. It has no sugar, no caffeine, and hundreds of 5-star reviews. Best of all, they've got a 60-day money-back guarantee, so you can buy it and try it for 59 days. And if you do not like it, they'll give you your money back. Right now, you can get a 30% discount off your first subscription order by going to the link in the description below or heading to hvmn.com/modernwisdom. That's hvmn.com/modernwisdom. One of my favorite books has just been turned into good. You like it? You don't need to turn it around each time.
Okay.
It's looking at you. It can stare at you. Yeah, it's Moorish. So one of my favorite books has just been turned into a movie. Churchill's Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. You know this?
I do know it.
So have you seen the trailer for this? So do you know who Alan Richer is? He's the guy that played... Yeah. So jacked out of his mind. Henry Cavill is in it. It's directed by Guy Ritchie.
Also jacked out of his mind.
Directed by Guy Ritchie. So it's going to be sexy. It's going to be cool. And I can't wait. But as you know...
True story.
You've read the book. Yeah, of course. This is like this sort of renegade spirit is so cool. So the beginning of World War II, the British being the prim and proper gentlemen.
You need a monocle and a bow tie. Go out, take a tea with one of them crumpets.
Exactly.
You know,
spinning a cane.
Yeah.
At the beginning of World War II, Winston Churchill realized that the only way that we could beat the Nazis was to play dirty. And there's a quote from one of the other high-ranking officials in the British government that said, "If this is what it takes to win, then I am prepared to lose." That's what he said. That there was a degree of...
Hang that guy. I don't know who that is, but they should hang him in the street.
But so I think, this was really the inception of guerrilla warfare being used at scale for advanced military.
Yeah.
And
that's the beginning of special forces.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
yes.
And
for both the US and the UK, although
right.
done separately.
And the Canadians.
Yes.
Like this is the beginning of it all. So
the genesis.
Very, very familiar with.
So, but just thinking about, okay, so there was like the British sensibility of doing things right was so powerful. It was such a compulsion that the guys in power would have rather there is a tendency, a leaning toward, this is so unethical. To them, it was like fucking sarin gas or fucking mustard gas or something. It's like, we're blowing up bridges. We're using, they created the limpet mine in that book as well. And they're doing it with aniseed balls wrapped in condoms. And it's just, it's fucking great. I can't wait for this movie to come out.
We're going through this right now though, Chris. 100%. So and history always repeats itself. There's a great book called The New Rules of War. And currently, America does not have the appetite to do what it takes to win the wars that we have to win. But we can't even call them wars, right? So we're currently fighting cartels, syndicated criminal groups. We're fighting wars via proxy against terrorist organizations in proxy nations. So not direct state-on-state conflicts, but rather like state versus this group of people that are living in this area of this other country that are being financed by one of our enemies. That's war, though. Like if our enemy is financing a bunch of different groups and militias to fight us in these really inhumane ways, we're at war with that country. But America can't recognize that. And the things that we would have to do to win this war in this new kind of way, we're not capable of doing. The drone warfare, the AI that we're having to use to be successful in Ukraine, Americans are, wait a second, so that drone is going to go kill a human and it's making its decision on its own? Yeah, it has to, because once it leaves this point of departure, it can't receive any signal from us because it's been blocked. And it has to be able to be making those decisions by itself. Similarly, like if you go down to the Mexican border, we're not just fighting immigrants. That's not what this is. You're an immigrant. I'm an immigrant. Literally every single white person in this whole entire country is an immigrant. With that said, there is an immigration process for us to come here. We are fighting cartels that are not just smuggling people, smuggling terrorists, smuggling drugs, and smuggling guns. They're smuggling in ideas. And we're at war on that border. That's for a country to be a real country, it has to have a sovereign border. There's literally an amendment in the Constitution saying that we have the right to defend ourselves and our borders, but we're not. And we're being invaded.
What's happening on the US-Mexico border at the moment? You spent some time down there. Give me I think, was it in December, 300,000 potential immigrants were stopped. That was the number that were stopped?
Yeah. But the getaways is the number that nobody talks about. So 300,000 people were stopped and then let in. How many weren't stopped? How many just got in? Is it more than 300,000?
What do you think?
Oh yeah, I 100% know it's more than 300,000. So like the number of people that we caught is going to be a small fraction of the number of people that made it across without being stopped. When you look at the vastness of that border and where the wall is, where our ports of entry are, where the river is, it is porous beyond belief. I've crossed that border like 25 times in a week, both sides, like, like I'm in Mexico. Like my phone says, welcome to Mexico. Like it's going to cost you $10 a day to be here. Welcome to the international program via Verizon. And then I come back and it's like, hey, welcome back to the United States. I'm like, they can do this all day long. So the ones that we're catching, the ones that we catch compared to the ones that make it through is a very, very small fraction. The ones that really don't want to be caught, the way the cartel will push a bunch of people that they know are going to get caught. Because if you just think of okay, I'm the commander. I have X number of resources. I have 100 troops at my disposal. Of course, I want to do counter interdiction. So I want to stop drugs. I want to stop human traffickers. I want to stop sex enslavement. I want to stop weapon smuggling. As I'm at the river in Del Rio, and I have 1,000 immigrants cross at one time, how many of my 100 soldiers do I need to use to deal with those 1,000 people? All right, so I've one guy receiving, right? I'm gonna put them into lines. I make some choke points. I funnel them into a specific area. I use some concertina wire to make sure like I have an orderly way. 50 guys, maybe 75 guys, right? So now I have 50 to 25 guys left for me to use. And I have this entire area that I have to be covering. But the moment that those people start coming across the river, there's the same time that 5 guys jump into the river with bundles on their back. And then another 5 miles up the river, 2 boats get pushed across with a bunch of Middle Eastern and Eastern European guys that are being smuggled and trafficked across. And then 5 miles down the river, there's a bunch of young girls that are 11 or 12 that are going back into Mexico that they kidnapped in El Paso. Okay, what?
The whole thing's coordinated.
Tell me how to distribute my remaining 25 guys. Also, the 1,000 that start coming across, the cartel dudes are just going to grab a couple of little girls and throw them in the river. They're going to grab a baby and drop it in the drink. They're going to take a dad and just trip him with a kid on his shoulders, and they're all drowning. Do you want my soldiers to jump in with body armor to start swimming after them? This is the reality every single day across the whole entire river, and it is the largest border in the world. In the world is our border on our southern border. Canada to the north, gigantic border. Mexico border to the south.
Need to stop those Canadians coming in. That's the important thing that no one's talking about.
Those. I don't know. I got hopes for their next election, though.
Okay. Yeah. So can you explain for the people who haven't been down to the Mexico border, is it all demarked in some form or another? Is there some type of, are there elements where it's literally just, this is a piece of land and you can wander across?
A lot. Texas has mostly private land. So that the border is on somebody's ranch.
Right. Fantastic.
Yeah. So,
hey guys, welcome in.
In some cases, but I mean, those ranchers, the cartel charges, we'll say like a ticket. So if you want yourself and your family to come across your Ecuador right now, kind of spicy. Cartels took the whole entire thing over. I'm not sure if you saw 2 weeks ago, they were killing news hosts in the news station while they were on the street, killing a bunch of people in the street and targeting government officials and judges. And it was happening like in real time, live on the news. So you have legitimate asylum seekers that are on the run from cartels. They move through Central America and they come up to the Mexico border. They pay the cartels to allow them to cross, or they pay them extra to facilitate them coming across. This is an endless cycle of revenue for the cartels. Like it costs them nothing to produce. They don't have to smuggle in drugs. They don't have to kidnap anybody. People are just walking to them. And they on the south side have created barriers where you can't cross without permission. And if you don't pay them, they'll kill you. So there's in some cases physical barriers and in some cases psychological barriers where if you point this point of departure, you'll be executed without a wristband, like your ticket. Like I could show you what those wristbands look like. Those wristbands, color coordinated, kind of tell you I got a round trip, I have multi-trip, I have single direction, I'm allowed to go through this area.
Oh, so it's super sophisticated.
Super sophisticated. All color coordinated and across this on the southern side, all agreed between this cartel that's working with this group, with this cartel, with these traffickers, and it's unstoppable the way that we're currently fighting it. It's just we're not going to win.
What is a way that would make it stoppable?
So when the Chinese built the Great Wall, they recognized that any barricade without observation isn't a barricade. So I can build a wall, but if there's not something there observing that thing, it's not really a barricade because I can do whatever I need to do to get over that barricade and there's nothing to stop me. So there's, like all problems, there's not a single solution, unfortunately. The wall creates choke points. It forces people to go through specific areas. And in those specific areas, we can set up to interdict those people. Now, there's a misconception that there is this barrier stopping people from crossing. There's not. And additionally, there are ports of entry. There are legal places where anybody, to include people like Mexicans, can just walk across the border. They can walk up and say, hey, I'm going to be working. Here's my visa, or I'm going to be working at this ranch. My mom lives across the street. And some of those borders, when they were set, some families lived on this side, some families lived on this side, and they've been going back and forth all the time. But there are so many hundreds of thousands of people that have flooded these areas that it creates a humanitarian crisis, and it creates this logistical problem of how, as the United States government and Department of State, how do we process this number of people? We can't, which is exactly what the cartel wants. And the surges that happen from the executive level, so the White House right now, they changed some policies and the word gets out that it's open borders. Everybody comes. And everybody's coming.
What was the word that got out that made it seem like it was open borders?
You get money when you cross. We'll give you a couple $1,000s. We'll give you a bus ticket to the inland. We'll throw you on a plane and bring you to the city that you want to go to. We'll, instead of you, if you're an asylum seeker, during the Trump era, for example, if you came in and you were caught, an asylum seeker that just crosses, they'll then just on the inland be like, hey, I'm looking for residency here. If they're stopped on the border, they'll claim that they're asylum seekers. Well, we would make that person wait either at the country of their crossing or the country of their origin for their case, for their asylum case to be heard. Now they get a date. Come back in like 6 months or 12 months to your court hearing for you to learn about the process of your asylum case. So there's only motivation for everyone to come here to the border, and then they get an automatic pass in.
Because there's no penalty.
That's right.
It's like universal asylum. In other news, this episode is brought to you by Momentous. You might have heard me say that I took my testosterone from 495 to 1006, and two of the supplements I used throughout that were Fidoja agrestis and Tonkat Ali. I first heard Andrew Huberman talk about the really impressive effects that these have on testosterone, but the problem is most supplements don't actually contain what they say. Momentous make the only NSF-certified Fidoja agrestis and Tonkat Ali in the world, meaning that even Olympians can use it because that is the level of testing that these products are put through. Best of all, there is a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can buy everything completely risk-free, try it for 29 days, and if you do not like it, they will give you your money back, no questions asked. Right now, you can get a 20% discount off everything site-wide, including all of the products I use and recommend by going to the link in the description below or heading to livemomentous.com/modernwisdom and using the code modernwisdom at checkout. That's live, momentous.com/modernwisdom. What's happening with these detention centers? That was a big news story a couple of years ago.
They've always been there. Like there were more detention centers and larger detention centers during Obama than there were Trump. That's kind of a play of numbers, though, because so few people tried to cross during Trump because they knew that they're going to be kicked back to their country of origin. Just a couple of days ago in New York, did you see the video of the immigrants that were attacking the NYPD officers? Oh, this is horrific. The police were trying to deal with a small problem with involving a bunch of immigrants, and the immigrants attacked the two police officers. The two police officers end up grappling on the ground against a couple of them, and then the whole entire crowd came up and started soccer kicking the police officers, and it turns into like this. I mean, it's a hard video to watch. I'm actually about to post it today because I wanted to get some more context as to like what was the initial call, why were they there? Like they were there doing the right thing. There were actually crimes being committed, and they were there to like try and keep the peace as good police officers. And then it was escalated not on their end, but on the illegals' end. And then they ended up getting like skull stomped. This is foreshadowing of what's going to be coming. Like this is just a tiny little taste. Like those are just immigrants. Those weren't even bad actors that were trained and are hoping for an opportunity to do America damage, because tens of thousands of them came into this country over the past couple of years.
Did you see that video of a bunch of people on a plane refusing to sit down because someone was being deported?
Yeah.
And it turned out that person had been involved in gangland shootouts and all manner of fuckery.
Yeah. 10 days ago, live news near Eagle Pass, another common
Texas.
Yeah. Another common smuggling point. This news host is talking about all the immigrants coming across, and this guy in pretty decent English walks up behind. He goes, "You don't know who I am, but you're going to know my name." And you're like, what is going on here? Facial recognition ties this guy to 82% that he is a multi-time terrorist that was in Gitmo. And he just walked across the border. He's live on television as this terrorist just walks into America and is bragging that everybody's going to know his name. That was almost 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago.
What would you do? What would you do to try and fix this problem? You've mentioned that you need to have presumably more staffing, more funding to be able to train people up to be able to do this.
Yep. So this isn't a border state problem. This is a national problem, right? So the governor of Texas is using state resources. He approved Operation Lone Star, which is using Texas National Guard soldiers to protect the border. So he is using tons of state funding to protect the Texas border. It's not just the Texas border. This is America's border. But a whole bunch of, most of California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, are bearing the burden of this immigration humanitarian crisis. But the other 36 states are kind of, or the other 46 states are just kind of like hanging back, being like, "Heh, sucks to be you guys." But then we bust a couple busloads up to them. They're like, "Oh my God, we're like being overwhelmed." I'm like, we sent you 500 of them. Do you know what it's like when you have 300,000 that just came across your border that are in your country? What would I do? I would finish the wall. I would make certain areas impassable. That's concertina wire. That is armed guards. That is men on horseback. That epic photo of those Border Patrol guys that he was actually using his leads and they thought it was a whip because people are idiots and they actually don't know how to ride a horse. Sensors, drones. We have the solutions. This is a fixable thing. We just don't have, yet again, the appetite to do what it takes to close that border. Once a border is closed, we open the ports of entry. Department of State funds, and Department of State is doing the best they can with the very restricted resources they have. So imagine like the White House is telling the Department of State, "Hey, you have to be doing this." And Department of State's like, "We don't have the resources and we don't have the means to facilitate this number of people." But then the White House is like, "Hey, everybody come over here." And Department of State's like, "We can't." So these ports of entry have to be opened and the systems have to be fixed for us to be able to process more people in a more strategic way.
Didn't someone rip down a ton of razor wire? Wasn't that a big deal like last week?
Yeah.
2 weeks ago?
So the federal government is, there's like competing efforts at the border right now. So Texas is saying the border's closed and the federal government's saying, no, the border's open. So the federal government is coming down to the barricades and the barriers that Texas has put up and said, you can't have those. That goes against federal law. And Texas is saying, no, you can't do that. Like, this is Texas land and we're closing the borders. So if you're not going to close the American borders, we're going to close the Texas border. They're literally like federal law enforcement is coming in and doing the opposite of what the Texas law enforcement is doing. Wild.
Yeah, that's conflict. Brian Callen told me that he tried to trick you into believing that he was asleep. And you stood over him and said, "Do you know how many people have tried to pretend that they're asleep as I've stood over them?"
Yeah. I love that guy. But he did get up and he did go to the water with me. And then he did wrestle with me on the southern coast of France in the sand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I started like leg riding him from behind and put his face down in the sand. And while he was like trying to, and ineffectively trying to get away from me, I was like drawing hearts in the sand and his face is like this. And I'm drawing hearts in the sand. It was awesome. What a gem of a human.
For the people who haven't, almost no one really that's listening will have been in any kind of kinetic armed encounter. What's it actually like to be in a firefight? What's the sense of that like? Just like describe what's going on.
Fear, chaos, anarchy. I mean, it's like it is so not like the movies. You know, it's like John Wick's just like doing like some cool artistic violent ballet, and it smells like shit. The smell of human flesh being burnt, whether it's a bullet going in it or an explosion from an IED or an RPG. The diesel from a Humvee or RG-33, the smell of gunpowder from a 50 cal machine gun, those are all hard smells. And then, when there's overpressure from, a machine gun or a bomb or a grenade or an AT-4, it of course kicks up the dirt, but it's the fine dirt. It's not like the heavy, good soil like on farmland. It's like the gross moon dust dirt.
Human skin.
Yeah. And so you get these really weird, not natural smells mixed with very earthy smells. And smells are a trigger for a lot of people's memories. And that earthy with mechanical, with burning thing are like really overwhelming sensations. That's the smell portion. And then there's like what you're seeing. And the fog of war could not fail to express how hard it is to see what you're seeing. You've heard that expression, the fog of war, and people trying to remember back to battles, and they have a really hard time explaining what they're seeing. It's because I don't think your brain can process what you're seeing. Your brain can't process, like, your friend just got blown up and he's burnt over here, and there's a guy up there that's shooting a bullet at you that's from a machine gun position that's going to kill you. And like the vehicle that you're just in is like shredded with a bunch of, wait, those holes in the front of this vehicle weren't there a few seconds ago, and that's what that sound was. But your brain's trying to process this all the time, all the while, like adrenaline, cortisol is just exploding through your body. It's war as hell, and the fog of war are apt expressions to try to, in a succinct way, say it's fucking chaos.
So it's not. Chaos is the right word, that there's no degree of pause or control in what you've just described, but presumably that's what tactics and preparation are for.
Yeah.
It's to allow you to be able to wrangle what's going on and actually have some sort of process that you guys are moving through.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we do tens of thousands of reps of an emergency reload of my rifle, right? The bolt locks to the rear. I feel the bolt. I feel my magazine getting lighter as I'm shooting. And then I literally feel against my chin the bolt lock to the rear. And I feel the little catch stop that bolt from traveling back forward because the follower was pushed up the bolt lock by the follower of the magazine. So I know my gun's empty. I drop the magazine. I insert a new magazine. I drop the bolt. I regrip the gun. I find my sight and I press the trigger. And all that happens in less than a second. My brain can't do that. Like, I can't cognitively think about doing that process, but I've practiced it, tens of thousands of times that it just happens. And when we start maneuvering and we have a group laying down suppressive fire while another group is flanking, or we have one group move up to an oversight position to start laying down suppressive fire while another element goes, like, these are all rehearsed responses to known problems. And that's why the most elite units on the planet have so much time to train and so many resources to facilitate them training. Go ambush Delta Force, go give that a whirl, real bad plan. You're all going to die. Send as many people as you want and just know that you're not going to get any of them back. Cool. Go deal with SEAL Team 6 on the water. That's a good idea, or go kidnap an American and drag her into the desert and then use a cell phone and see how that works out for you. These are all stories of SEAL Team 6, dropping into North Africa and going and rescuing this beautiful blonde NGO worker and killing literally everybody on the ground. True stories. And it's because they've done it thousands of times, thousands of reps, thousands of jumps, thousands of rounds down on the range. So when that chaos happens and you're scared and you're full of fear, you're just doing the thing that you've always practiced to do. And if you do it, you'll live. If you don't, you're going to die.
So I understand the moving things that you have to do from system 2 deliberate thinking into system 1 automatic thinking. It's what you did in the UFC, right? Someone throws a punch. You don't think, oh, that's a left jab. I'm going to slip. Yeah, I'm going to move a little bit. I'm going to move. It just happens. But presumably in a firefight, it's not just reaction and response. There's this sort of system 1 thinking where you're just doing the things, reloading the weapon. But then there's also you need to use some cognition too. So what about that pulling in and pulling out thing? How do you utilize a little bit more of the analytical brain if you've just cortisol and adrenaline and...
Well, those systems and those processes are built within the military combat unit. So while you have the fighters, you also have we'll just use a Special Forces ODA. You have
ODA?
Operational Detachment Alpha. It's like the 12-man A team.
Right.
Within that team, you have 2 guys per job. There's 4 main jobs, which are the 8 men that do the body of the work. The other 4 guys are leaders in some form or fashion, and each of them take a certain piece of the pie on the leadership role.
Is that 1 for each 2?
No. So the team sergeant, he's kind of running the 8 guys. He's the E8 that is like the battle hardened. He's the most senior NCO on the ground, and he's feeding the information to the 18 Bravo, the weapons guy, to the communication guy, to the engineer who's going to be launching mortars and rockets, and to the medic who's making sure like all the team and their foreign fighters are all working in unison. And then you have, the intel guy who's kind of feeding information and helping the team sergeant, but he's also feeding information to the team leader. The team leader's on the phone talking to command, getting maybe some air support. He wants some fixed wing fast movers, or he's looking for some rotary wing support, or he called an AC-130. So they're all reacting, but they're reacting in their piece of the pie. Mm-hmm. And some of those reactions are that team leader, the captain, if he picks up the 240 machine gun and hops up on top of the back of the Humvee and he's just like, I'm the war hero, sir, you're fired. That is not your job. Your job is to go get on that radio and to call higher and get us support. Similarly, if that team sergeant isn't directing and coordinating the men to respond to, the threat or the ambush in the right way that they've rehearsed and they've planned, then he's not doing his job. So each one of these awesome jobs has an awesome role, and the individual responsibility of that person to understand that role and then to be able to execute that role in this hell that is war during the fog of war is so freaking badass. And that's why it's one of the many reasons why I look to like the Marcus Luttrells and the Andy Stumps and the Jockos and the Evan Hafers, and you see them be like incredibly successful in business. And you're like, of course they will. Because look at what they did beforehand in all of these different roles as they moved up the military ladder and filled every single one of the roles on the way up, where like they'll go run a Fortune 500 company, or they'll go start a brand new one and, and then bring it public and sell it for a few $100 million. And here's my face of surprise. They could do anything.
What do each of the 4 pairs of people do?
So you have the 18 Bravo. He is a weapons sergeant, and he's kind of responsible for base security. The initial, he's like the warrior. I was an 18 Bravo, so I'm being slightly biased here. They're the best. And so then the 18 Charlie, he's the engineer. So
but there's 2 of each of these?
There's 2 of
Yep.
There's a senior and a junior.
Right.
So the guy that's been on the team longer, and then the team gets the junior guy, and he's the mentor to
underneath.
him. He's shown him all the things that he needs to know and preparing that replacement. And the senior of each of those jobs is also looking at the 4 other roles, like the 18 Fox, the warrant on the team, and the team sergeant, and they're all kind of being positioned and trained to then fill the next role above them. The engineer is the explosives, the building, is the bridge good to cross? Is this building stable for us to fight from? If I'm going to be setting up the camp, here's how I'm doing like the logistic resource of refits and refuels. 18 Echo is the communication guy. So satellite communication, line of sight communication, FM, all of the things that we need to do, shoot, move, communicate, medicate. Then leads us to the 18 Delta, which is the Special Forces medic. And there's 2 of them. They're like a PA, like slash paramedic that's really, really good at trauma.
In other news, this episode is brought to you by AG1. Nutrition doesn't have to be complicated, it just has to work. And that's why I've used AG1 every single day for over 3 years now. AG1 is literally the best in the world at providing you with a scientifically backed blend of ingredients that helps to fuel your body. You might have heard Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan and Peter Attia and Andrew Huberman and myself talk about this product, and that's because it is the best daily foundational nutrition supplement on the planet. AG1 is a comprehensive nutrition solution formulated to support whole body health. It's got 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients. Best of all, it's got a 90-day money-back guarantee, so you can buy it and try it every single day for 3 full months, and if you do not like it at the end of those 3 months, they will give you your money back. That's how confident they are that you'll love it. Right now, you can get a year's free supply of vitamin D plus 5 free travel packs by going to the link in the description below or heading to drinkag1.com/wisdom. That's drinkag1.com/wisdom. I was reading about some rumors of the number of soldiers that had been deployed, perhaps it was in World War II, but it could have been in one of the later wars, who didn't fire their rifle or purposefully fired their rifle over the heads of the enemy. How much truth's in that?
There's truth to that. We have this wild phenomenon called non-shoot snipers. So guys in a combat arms, he goes to the only casualty producing school within the military is sniper school, where they're actually just teaching a person how to kill another person.
The only casualty producing, right? Because the only role that you have, or the primary role that you have, I guess spotting as well, is like in
observing, feeding back information. But ultimately, we're also teaching a dude how to take crosshairs, figure out how to take a bullet and put it into somebody and make a hole. You have lots of military schools. I'm about to go to one that's like 6 months long, and that is not a casualty producing school. That's a leadership school. It's like Ranger School, not a casualty producing school. That's a leadership school. Safartech, that is not a casualty producing school. Even though you learn a ton about how to shoot, move, communicate, medicate, that is how to rescue somebody that is a hostage. You go to SFAUC, Special Forces Advanced Urban Combat. That is how do I do war in a combat area or in an urban area. It's like each of them building necessary skills within that special operations unit. But sniper school, teaching somebody how to make a hole in somebody far, far away. The no-shoot sniper comes from combat arms, goes to sniper school, goes to war, and can't pull the trigger. And it's not common, but it happens. And this is just my personal opinion. I think it is for a couple of reasons. One is the equipment that we use, just like I can see you here, very, very close, like I can see your skin, I can see your pores, I can see the veins on your neck. You're like, that's how intimate it is when you're looking through a 20 power optic.
So it humanizes the target.
Yeah. And I'm watching them breathe, and I know I'm going to have a bullet flight of 2 to 3 seconds. So I actually have to be watching how you're moving. So I need to know where you're going to be in 2 to 3 seconds from now. So I'm like learning so much about you and how you move, and it really connects me to you, which is one problem. And then the other part is the thing that we've known throughout all war, which is some people just can't do it. It's not for everybody. Have you Hacksaw Ridge? Have you ever seen this movie, read this book? Medal of Honor recipient. He was a conscientious objector. He would not hold a weapon. This is during World War II. He would not hold a gun. He said he wouldn't do it. It was against his faith. And during one of the island invasions in the Pacific, he rescued like hundreds of Americans and gets shot, gets stabbed, gets blown up. And he just keeps going up this cliff and grabbing these Americans. And everybody at the base of the cliff has no idea who keeps lowering down these Americans. And they find out that it was this guy that they've been trying to kick out of the unit because he wouldn't fight. And not everybody needs to fight. There's a beautiful poem written about the warrior. There's 100 men that go to war. 80 of them shouldn't even be there. Like they're just bags of blood. They're going to be running forward to die. 10 of them are going to they're the men that are going to carry the war. Like they're the ones that are going to go out and fight, and then there's the remaining 10, and men, they're incredible. They're brave. They're courageous. They're leaders. But then there's the one, right? There's the one that's going to bring all the men home. And that's the Marcus Luttrells. That's the Dakota Meyers. That's the extraordinary, that's the Andy Stumps, some of these guys.
I texted Andy this morning.
Yeah. Great human. This is Andy's.
It's nice. Origin?
Yeah. But I stole it from him.
Right. You actually took it off his back.
No. He laid down and set it down, and I took it and I put it in my bag, and then I left with it.
Right. So if Andy's looking at you thinking, that's a familiar looking.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if it was his or Denver's, but I'm like 90% sure that it was his.
Okay.
So like 90% that I stole this.
That it's nice.
Yeah, it is nice.
Is there anyone, you mentioned Marcus Luttrell, Dakota Meyer. Is there anyone that you have heard about or you served with that you wish their story would be better known? Is there someone or are there incidents that you wish that you could sort of bring to public light more?
Yeah.
Give me some.
Roy Benavidez. All right, you're not going to believe this one. Okay. Roy Benavidez. He's in Vietnam. He's a Texan, and he's sitting on a forward base, and he listens to a Special Forces ODA. He's a Green Beret, getting a gunfight. He's like, whoop, this sounds bad. Helicopter goes in to try to get some dudes. He gets scuffed up, comes back with a bunch of bullet holes, and Roy runs up to the helicopter. He's like, hey, I'm going to go with you. Take me back in there. He throws a bunch of guns and ammo in there. The helicopter takes off.
On his own.
On his own. Flies him back to where the ODA has almost all been massacred. He goes, starts leading the remaining men that are all busted up. All of them are wounded. Most of them are dead. He gets them to start fighting back the Viet Cong and starts pushing them back. He gets all of them in together, and they start surviving for a little bit. Helicopters are trying to come get them out. Through the course of it, I think he gets like 70, 80, or 90 bullet wounds, fragmentation from grenades, and bayonet wounds. He kills a dude with a rock, kills a dude with a bayonet. There's a portion where one of the helicopters is trying to take off, but it has so much they overload it with the wounded and dead. He's running alongside of it with a machine gun, providing support with his body, and a machine gun laying down supporting fire as this helicopter's trying to take off. Helicopter comes back again. He gets the last remaining bits of equipment. He gets the last few men back onto the helicopter. He's the last guy to come. He gets jumped, gets stabbed with the bayonet, takes the bayonet out, kills the dude, kills a couple more dudes, hops in the helicopter and falls over. The helicopter lands. He's covered in blood. He's covered in mud. And they're like, this dude's dead. They throw him in a dead body bag so they can throw him in the morgue. And as they're zipping the thing up, he goes, and he spits in the doctor's face. He couldn't talk. He'd been so wounded. There's nothing that he could do besides spit on this dude to let him know that he was still alive. He's like, oh my God, Roy Benavidez is still alive. That's a good one. You know, Shugart and Gordon?
No.
Black Hawk Down?
No.
Okay, I'm going to do this without crying.
Okay. Good luck. Good luck.
You're familiar with the Black Hawk Down, Battle of Mogadishu. They're in there to get this terrorist leader. And the plan was for Delta Force to come in on top of this building. The Rangers come up to create a security perimeter around this building, while they find the bad guy inside, move him to the vehicles, and they all drive out together. That was the plan. Like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until you get hit in the face. Guys get in, they get the bad guy, Rangers arrive, helicopter gets struck by an RPG in the tail, helicopter crashes. This then begins this horrific battle against a bunch of different terrorist organizations, all trying to kill the Rangers and Delta Force that are now trapped in Mogadishu. And this is a fight. 30, 40 to 1 odds in ratio between terrorists to American operators. Shugart and Gordon are two Special Forces snipers that are in a helicopter providing overwatch. One of the helicopters that gets shot and crashes is getting overrun by all of these insurgent militia terrorists. They see on the ground that this helicopter, that some of the people inside of it survived the crash. And they see small arms fire. They see flashes from these guys trying to protect themselves. They get on the radio and they're like, General, we'd like permission to go in and protect these guys. If we don't get down there, they're going to get overrun. We can see everything. The general's like, negative. You do not have permission. You cannot be put on the ground. And they're like, understood.
Why did they not give permission?
So they call again 5 minutes later. They're like, if we don't get on the ground right now, everybody in that helicopter is going to die. The general's like, no, denied. You cannot go down there. You see better than we can that there's no way for us to get you out. If you go on the ground, it's just going to add to the problem. It's 2 more people. They get a third time. Sir, with your permission, please allow us to get on the ground. We will fight to the helicopter. We will create a perimeter, a security perimeter around these guys, and we will protect them until we get a time to get these guys out. The general's like, I don't know when that's going to be. If you go on the ground, I can't send the Rangers to you. I have no more helicopters to send to you. I have no resources to go and rescue the people in that helicopter. And Durant, an amazing book, the pilot that was in that helicopter, he tells in his book, the most dangerous time to be taken captive is like the first few minutes. There's like this bloodlust, this like rampant rage. So the helicopter crashes, right? And like, think like you're an insurgent, you're a terrorist on the ground.
We got him.
we got him, right? Like you're rushing in, you're just killing everything. It's like there has to be this lull if anybody has a chance to survive. So Shugart and Gordon talk the general after 3 efforts into putting them on the ground. These 2 Delta Force Special Forces snipers from like the school that I went to, it's the best sniper school on the planet. These dudes fight from their info point to the helicopter and they kill literally everybody. Like if there was anybody within 200 meters that was holding a gun, they went on the ground leaky of blood and dead. They get to the helicopter, and this is all explained in Durant's book because he was the one that survived. He was the one that they went to rescue. He was the one that they ultimately gave their life to save, and they did just that. They grab him, they drag him out of the helicopter, they bring him into the building, and then they go back out to the helicopter. They give him an MP5, and they say, anybody that comes in behind us, stop them because we're going to fight to slow, because they're like this big, huge surge, like this, like you've seen like where riots kind of start getting that energy and like people start pulsing.
Fever.
Yeah. So that fever is there and they're just trying to keep it at bay. And they run out of rifle ammo. They start acquiring weapons off the ground and they run out of that ammo and they end up with pistols and they're like bare knuckle fighting these guys and shooting the remaining pistol rounds as they have before ultimately they're both killed. And they save his life. And Shugart and Gordon knew, and this is the hard one. They knew they were going to die. Like there's not a way that you're sitting in a helicopter like that and you're like, we'll survive this. When that question is, there's no greater thing than to lay your life down for another. Service, right? Here we are, full circle. They knew that they were going to die for the chance to save a dude. And I've asked myself this question 1,000 times, like, what would I do? And I don't know. Shugart and Gordon, pretty rad men. I could go on for hours telling these stories because if there's a part of you that is lacking purpose, sometimes you can find inspiration from somebody else's purpose. And there's been times where I'm like looking at Israel, like, do I have to go over there? Is this where I really need to go? And those questions of like, should I be there? Or am I just another pawn to these large strategic influences? Should I be at the Mexico border? Should I be in Ukraine? Should I be in Afghanistan? But maybe that purpose is just to be part of something that's bigger and better than yourself. And then the answer is yes. Here I am, send me, like in Isaiah 6:8.
We'll get back to talking to Tim in 1 minute, but first I need to tell you about Element. Stop having coffee first thing in the morning. Your adenosine system that caffeine acts on isn't even active for the first 90 minutes of the day, but your adrenal system is, and salt acts on your adrenal system. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio of sodium, potassium, and magnesium that helps to curb cravings, improve your brain function, and regulate your appetite. You might not actually be that tired, you might just be dehydrated, and proper hydration isn't just about getting enough fluids, it's also about getting enough electrolytes, and this is the best in the world at it. Also, there's a no BS, no questions asked refund policy, so you can buy it completely risk-free. Try it, drink the entire box, and if you do not like it for any reason, they'll give you your money back, and you don't even need to return it. That's how confident they are that you'll love it. Head to the link in the description below to get a free sample pack of all 8 flavors with your first box, or go to drinklmnt.com/modernwisdom. That's drinklmnt.com/modernwisdom. There was a story that you had when you ran out of ammo as well. I seem to remember hearing that from you.
Yeah, that's not a great plan. If you're in the military, as best you can, never be in a gunfight and run out of ammo. That was in Uruzgan Valley, Afghanistan in 2008. We got blown up and they couldn't get ammo resupplies into us. The gunfight was so intense. We have RT-33s, we had Humvees, we had supporting Special Forces commandos that were with us. We ran out of ammo. Like, that's wild. That's a gunfight.
How long was that firefight?
3 days in, a couple of days out. So maybe 5 days cumulatively of gunfighting.
What do you mean in and out?
So we were moving a group of Czech special operations into this firebase called Firebase Anaconda. And we had to go through this valley to get to Firebase Anaconda. And the topography was really advantageous for the Taliban. And like everything was kind of stacked against us, but we had to get this unit in there because Firebase Anaconda had been isolated. If you Google Firebase Anaconda, they have, I think, 2 or 3 times been overrun by the Taliban, like climbing over walls, and they're fighting for their lives.
Who the fuck chose to put this thing there?
That's a great question.
That's a stupid idea to put it in this
bad spot. They're also surrounded. They're close enough where foreign fighters are easily that area is easily accessible to foreign fighters. It's just like the perfect storm and the worst place to be. ODA 782. Little shout out to you guys because they held that base better than anybody ever has throughout the whole entire GWAT. And it's my 2 best friends in the world, their old ODA. But we were trying to get the Czech special forces to Firebase Anaconda, and you had to pass through this valley, and that's where we got blown up and attacked and ambushed. And then we had to fight for a while. And then once we got to Firebase Anaconda, we had scuffed up, we killed like 300-400 foreign fighters and Taliban on our way in. Like that really, like we kicked a hornet's nest. So then all of the other organizations were sending all of their people because then they knew that we had to leave because our job was to bring those guys in. We left. I put this in my book, and I can't remember it off the top of my head now. We left with a couple hundred trucks, and we arrived with like a couple dozen. That was crappy.
So if you're in a situation like that where you need to be fighting for 5 days straight, like you can't be awake and functioning well for all of that time. So you're trying to grab 30 minutes of rest whenever you can.
I don't remember like trying to get rest. I remember being underneath a Humvee and I woke up, and I don't know how I got underneath that Humvee, and I don't know how long I had been underneath that Humvee. And I heard like, so there's somebody like shooting towards you, which is like, and then there's somebody shooting at you, which is like the snap. And then there's,
why is the snap?
The snap is the bullet crest, like coming past you. And
right. It pushes the air.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then there's bang. And that's like the bullet is so close. You hear the bang of the rifle. You hear the pop of the supersonic. And then you hear literally the 115 grain or 250 grain thing going past your face. And I'm laying there and I hear as it like goes past this Humvee and hits something metal in my vicinity, and I wake up. And then I was like, ah, and I had overpressure sickness, so I was like shitting my pants.
What's overpressure sickness?
Something where it's like being concussed. And it's not being concussed. It is being concussed.
Okay.
So like a bunch of small concussions from explosions and IEDs and RPGs and 50 cals and AT4s, like all the things that we're shooting at them and all the things that they're shooting at us, all of those things go with air, and that's happening around your head.
Yep. So
that sucks. And then we're at altitude, and then I'm sleeping underneath a Humvee, which is probably not a great place.
While shitting yourself.
Yeah, while you're shitting yourself. I smelled, I bet. Dude, that was pretty stank. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know when I slept. I just like occasionally would wake up. And when I was writing that Scars and Stripes, and I went back and I talked to a whole bunch of people that were there with me. One of my friends, Mike, he died in 2019, Afghanistan. He was with me. He saved my life that day. Mike Goebel. I walk up to a door, and I don't know how he knew this. Because I walk up and I'm about to push the door open. And as soon as I touch the handle of the door, and it's a push door, he shoves me. And he and I always like, we're kind of physical. Like we're almost always going to fight over something stupid. I got mad at him because he was carrying a pistol through a village and he wanted a pistol kill. And I was like, you're sitting on a machine gun. Why would you be holding a pistol? Put your pistol away. And we ended up fist fighting. The team sergeant came over and separated. It's like, we were always like really rough. So he shoves me and I like fall back and I'm like getting ready. Like we're in the middle of a gunfight and I'm about to like start a fist fight with him because he shoves me and the whole door starts getting shredded by machine gun fire. There's a PKM on the other side. And I don't know if he like heard the bolt drop. I don't know if he heard the selector switch, the safety getting pulled. I don't know if he just had like an intuition, if there's a sixth sense, divine intervention. He shoves it and the whole door just starts getting shredded. Mike Goebel. And hero. I wish everybody learned about him. There's another multiple tours, countless lives he saved, more people he rescued, like hero. Mike English. I can't even say his last name because he's still in. But the fog of war, when I went back and talked to all these guys, they remembered a whole bunch of things that I didn't remember. And we, in some cases, the things that we remembered were in conflict of each other.
Like, I thought it happened this way. No, it didn't. It happened that way.
That's right. Like there were a bunch of women and kids that got hurt after that door got shredded, because when that door got pushed open, I saw a machine gun barrel sticking out of this tiny little window, and I take a frag grenade, and I throw it through that window. The grenade goes off, and a few seconds later, I hear a bunch of women and children screaming. Now, a few seconds later can be anything in the brain in war, right? That might have been 10 minutes, but I remember it being like very shortly after, like it was a response to my grenade. On the outside of the building, my friend Mike K was on a big heavy machine gun pounding this compound where he saw a bunch of insurgents fighting out of it, specifically that room where those women and children were. So for 10 years, I lived with I'm the one that hurt these people that had been used as body shields by the terrorists. And he, for 10 years, had assumed that he was the one that had hurt everybody, and he was living with that for 10 years. We both did, right? Like, it's war. That's
How do you think about that? That's certainly one of the things, when people hear stories like that, especially if they're not familiar with collateral damage and the imprecision that happens, especially when you're going house to house, especially if the terrorists are using civilians as body shields, or if you're just going door to door with things, it's families and people in that.
Yeah.
How do you think about collateral damage in that way? The fact that, there's someone who didn't do anything wrong that is in the midst of two people trying to kill each other.
Yeah. Obviously, America wants no collateral damage. If you go back to World War II, you launch a surprise attack against us in Pearl Harbor, and we fight you all the way back to mainland and take every single island that you used to own and then make it ours. And then we tell you to surrender and you don't, and we drop a nuclear bomb on you. Then we tell you to surrender and you don't, and we drop another nuclear bomb on you. And we tell you to surrender, and if you don't, we're going to drop another nuclear bomb on you. Like, that's winning a war. That's winning a war in a way that we don't have the appetite to win wars anymore. The moral equivalency of terrorist organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah and the Taliban, Al-Qaeda and ISIS, they intentionally use civilians as shields. They intentionally use hostages as shields. They intentionally manipulate the battlefield for the moral consequence of the fighting force that has to fight against it. They want to hurt our souls. They want to hurt the civilians, because if the civilians get hurt by us as we're trying to be strategic and targeting the bad guys, we don't want any collateral damage at all. We want zero, but they make it so that it's impossible for us to be successful without any form of collateral damage. And that's exactly what they want, because that continues. It's another spoke in the wheel of their propaganda machine. So then they say, look, all these women and children were hurt because the Americans or the Israelis came in here. No, you did that on purpose. You were hiding a rocket launcher at a hospital. You were hiding a bunch of arms in a school, and then you put all the kids in the school, and you wanted us to target it, and then you leaked out information that those weapons were in the school, and then you also leaked out information that high-level leaders were there at the specific time. So of course we targeted that time to get the high-level leaders and the weapons, but then you put kids in there. Anybody that tries to conflate this moral equivalency between the Hamas and Israel's response, you can just separate them in this one specific idea. One group of them are hiding behind civilians, and they use that as leverage and opportunity to create more propaganda. The other group is doing everything in their power to limit civilian casualties, and any form of collateral damage. And the line of departure between those two could not be more clear. And anybody that says anything else is ignorant and totally doesn't understand it, or is so in confirmation bias, trying to support a set of beliefs that are not based on fact. They could not be more dissimilar. And shame on anybody that conflates those two.
I was speaking about the Nagasaki bomb blast. Do you know The Forgotten Highlander by Alistair Urquhart?
No.
Dude, I'll get this book for you. It's my favorite nonfiction sort of real life story. So this guy is a Scottish dude who goes to Singapore in World War II. Japan enters the war. He gets captured by the Japanese. And for the next 4 years goes through more than I think pretty much anyone that I've ever read about. So this guy is put in forced labor for the best part of 2.5 years. He's made to help build the bridge over the River Kwai. He's basically permanently got every tropical disease, including dysentery, for all of this time. He's being mistreated. Then one of the camp guards tries to rape him. So instead of allowing him to do that, he kicks him in the nuts and runs away. He then gets locked in a tin box in the middle of the sun to basically just cook to death, doesn't die. Then after that, gets put onto one of these Japanese hell ships, which doesn't have the Swiss cross on the side. That gets torpedoed by an American submarine, doesn't die. Finds a small piece of flotsam and floats in it. Has to fight a Japanese soldier in the water, one in like a little bucket and the other on this piece of flotsam, doesn't die. Lands ashore and is free briefly, but then gets recaptured.
No.
Put back to work, gets knocked off his feet by the bomb blast from Nagasaki, still doesn't die, and then for 50 years keeps quiet by order of the British government, and finally writes this memoir to bring the Japanese to account for the atrocities that they went through, because we had the Nuremberg trials, we had this sort of call to arms for what Germany had done, but the equivalent thing didn't seem to happen in the same way for the Japanese.
Yeah.
The book is outrageously good. It's called The Forgotten Highlander. Outrageous.
I'm in. Yeah.
It's really good. Other thing as well, I remember there's this great, is it World War II, The Front Lines? It's on Netflix at the moment. So they used AI to colorize and make 4K, all of this sort of archive footage, which is very strange because you're not used to seeing olden-timey war in a more vibrant sort of real way. It's always... Archive footage has this, it gives you a sense of distance by it not being as sharp, right? You were talking about the sniper is able to see the face, the expressions of the person, and it humanizes them. This really humanizes the story.
I'm not sure I can handle this.
It's pretty rough, but it's also fascinating because it's so much more immersive.
Yeah.
If the Japanese hadn't decided they were going to surrender, the US was basically preparing the largest land invasion in history.
That's right.
Right? And I think they were still unsure about whether or not Japan was actually going to surrender, because it was like, we will fight to the last man, woman,
the emperor
and child.
said that behind every single blade of grass would be a Japanese soldier or a civilian with a sword behind every blade of grass in Japan, in the mainland. So America, when we looked like, why would we drop 2 nuclear bombs? That would have cost fewer lives than
it would have been millions.
That's right. So like, wait, dropping 2 nuclear bombs saved millions of lives? Yes, it did. Try to explain that, welcome to 2024.
What's it like to be shot? Have you been shot?
I have.
Okay. What's it feel like?
Yeah. Well, so I've never actually been shot in war, and and for me protecting, it's a really weird thing seeing a barrel pointed at you and then seeing the flash. I was obviously in body armor, and I was being really particular. So I like rolled my shoulders back, and I was standing like this, and I pulled my chin back because I didn't want any like slag or things coming up into my neck or into my shoulders and my arms. I have seen friends get shot in war, and I have obviously shot people on like the receiving end of, in a gunfight. So one of my friends had a round go through like his groin, and it missed his like femoral artery, but his like balls started like swelling up. So like a little bit of slag, like a little bit of I think shrapnel, like went up into his nut sack. So they started like bleeding in there and like started getting really. We had to air vac him out, but he didn't realize that he'd even been hurt or hit until like he had a gigantic set of balls. Like he was still like,
that wasn't like that.
Yeah, like what is going on down here? And there in Band of Brothers, there's this amazing scene where this grenade goes off and he looks down and he sees that he's bleeding below the waist, and the medic runs over and he's like, got you. And he like cuts him up, cuts his trousers open. He's like, hey bro, you're good. Like, hey, your dick and balls are still good. Stay with me. You got the will to fight now. You're like, it was like this essence of when you think about warriors, like they're warriors in every sense, and their manliness and that masculinity are very much entwined with their
Don't
psyche.
Get your dick blown off if best possible. Yeah.
But to the bullet question, like mostly they're like, I got hit, like,
yes.
What the fuck? Do you see this?
Yeah.
Like they didn't even recognize that there's a bullet hole in their arm. Or like, I'm trying to use my arm, it's not working.
Well, I guess you've got this cascade of hormones, the cortisol, the adrenaline, all the rest of it. So it's just like, I don't know. That's why I was so interested to work out how much pain versus how much surprise there is. I have this sort of idea. I snapped my Achilles, which is the most traumatic injury that I've had. Pretty nasty injury. Yeah. And the first thing that I felt wasn't pain. It was surprise. I was like, why is my leg not? And I thought to myself, I wonder how many people, we think about your final moments on this planet being you thinking of your loved ones, or you in pain, or you in fear, or you in whatever. I think surprise will be up there as one of the leading emotions that people pass away with. Like, did I just get fucking...
I hope so. That's a great way to go. When I'm hunting, I try to be a really ethical hunter, and I even try to be on the left side of surprise. Like that animal's just sitting there eating grass,
dead before it has a chance to be surprised.
It's just like, what was that? Oh no, there's nothing. Can't even figure out what it was because it's just blackness now. I don't know. I can't think of a time where I was hurt even in the fights in the UFC. Cut wide open. Like this was Robbie Lawler. This was Yoel Romero. This was Jacare Souza. Like I got one from Luke Rockhold right here. And after the fights, the UFC fight doc, he'd come to stitch me closed, and he'd walk in with like a local and be like, I don't want that. He's like, yeah. I was like, no, I'm serious. So my face closed, and I never let him give me any form of painkiller. I wanted to feel it, but I didn't really feel it. And then in the cage, I definitely didn't feel it.
So it sounds like a really hard thing to do, but your body is just producing so much. Yeah.
And I also, there's a bit of me that wanted to feel it. Like I made this mistake. I want to remember this mistake, like The Purpose of Pain. I'm writing a book right now called The Purpose of Pain. And the lessons that we learn from pain are, I think, the most important lessons. Emotional pain, like, I bat out of my league. I'm like, hey, that crazy Latino girl that's like an 11, I'm totally going to be with this one. And then she tries to stab you at night. You're like, maybe you batted out of your league, bro. Like, go with the 7. And similarly, like I touch a stove and I burn my hand. I know that not to touch the stove again. Like I think back to all the mistakes and the humiliation and the shame that I made as a young man. And now as I'm hoping to be an improved man, I'm like, I don't want to do that again. I remember what that embarrassment felt like.
You've worked quite hard to try and we've spent a good bit of time together since I've been...
Not enough, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
That's your fault.
Yeah, it is my fault. But I passed my driving test finally because there's no license equivalency, but that means I can drive up and see you up north.
Okay.
You spend an awful lot of time trying to do everything the way that you want to do anything, whether it's with alcohol, with training. We did a session... He came up to me in Roca. I hadn't done any cardio work in quite a while, and it was a pairs workout that was going to last maybe 30 minutes or something in 4 stations, 3 stations. And he came up to me and he pointed your finger in my face, and you said, "There's one thing that we're not going to be, and that's last. That was quite motivating. My point being, do you think that you're a good man now because you have this backdrop of not believing that you were a good man? When you think about you, who do you see? Do you see the old Tim? Are you still paying reparations? How do you think about that?
I mean, what is it? We'll get philosophical. Like, what is a good man? I think a man should always be judged by his actions. And obviously, if you look back to periods of my life, my actions were not in support of being a good man. I mean, even some of the motivations of when I was going overseas, like all these idealistic things about, hey, you can go and make a place a more stable and sovereign nation. You can give them democracy. Like those are really great ideas. But there was also a 25-year-old version of Tim that was like, I want to go and get in a fight. Like I want you to say something so I can knock your teeth in. Like I'm happy to be a bouncer at the door for the opportunity to do violence. All of those obviously are not great characteristics. And so even though I was doing good things, I was looking for an opportunity to do bad things. Now, if we are what we do, what are the things, like if anybody were to take a step back and look at their life and you're spending 8-10 hours a day working at a job that you don't love, to go back to a woman that you don't appreciate, to be around kids that you don't want to feed and nurture and be intentional with, are you a good person? I don't think so. But you could have that exact same situation where you're working 8 to 10 hours a day to be the best provider you possibly can for the woman that you love, that you know she needs to, that you want to be able to support and provide for and put, good food on the table for the kids that you love, to support them going to club sports or to a private school, or to get them out of this crappy public education that they're in. Like the only thing that changed there was the action still the same, but the purpose was different.
Yeah.
And so now for me, my purpose and my actions are in alignment.
Yeah.
And they didn't used to be. And now I very much try to have those things be complementary.
It sounds like you led with action and then allowed the intention to kind of catch up to that.
Yeah. The wheels were always spinning, but the car wasn't always pointed in the right direction.
Yeah. I think that's an easiest way to do it. One of my friends, Alex, talks about, I felt much better about myself when I started judging myself on my actions, not on the thoughts that I had. And I think that that's a really good first step, especially if someone is unsure about how virtuous they might actually be deep down, where maybe they're cowardly, or maybe they're untrustworthy, or maybe they don't fulfill their potential, or maybe they shy away from hard things, or whatever it might be. The first place to start, I think the easiest place to start, is to just change the things that you do and then allow intention to catch up after that. Because, dude, it's so hard. It's so hard to change our sense of self. How long have you worked at it to try and basically, pay recompense, this kind of like life of flagellation, like self-flagellation in service of something, to be like, and finally, maybe I'm a good man.
Yeah.
But I think it's way easier to start with action than it is to be like, I think I'm a good man, and then this is going to go ahead, because you're always not going to know.
Yeah. I could not agree with you more. When people are asking, and I get asked all the time, man, what should I do? I'm like, do anything, just start.
Yeah.
Like, cool, you want to be a police officer? Well, start developing the characteristics that make you a good one. Start learning grace in different cultures, join jujitsu, start shooting, learn what it means to be like somebody that wants to protect somebody and sacrifice a portion of themselves at the expense of themselves for the benefit of another. Like, these are things that we have to have in somebody that is a servant. Who, you want to go into the military? Learn another language. Like, if you are not planning your future, somebody else is going to be planning your future for you. So if you don't know what your purpose is, sometimes you can just start doing things that will make you a better person, and those things will give you purpose. And that's okay. Sometimes the cart is before the horse, and that's okay. Like, I didn't know as a firefighter EMT first, then I went to the police academy to become a police officer, to go and hunt down serial killers. And then 9/11 happened and I enlisted in special forces. And then from there, I went to other specialty schools to go to special units. And then from there, like I started these gigantic NGOs that go and rescue people all over the planet. And now I'm working within the military in a military capacity in like my official role to like save soldiers and help with recruiting and to talk about messaging and clearly communicate how great of an organization it is and how wonderful it is to be part of this organization and to do something impactful that means more than yourself. And if you take a step back, you're like, man, he's always kind of been going in this direction. The wheels were always spinning. It was been imperfect. And now that there is momentum and a little bit of experience and plenty of failure, now we're starting to see positive impact. But man, it took 25 years.
Yeah. It's a slow, to chip away at whatever sense of self and to adjust the course. It is like moving a freighter. Right? It's 1/2 degree every single year. And you're like, right, okay, and finally I can actually get this thing to swing around. Are there any, you mentioned that memory before of, I thought it was the grenade and he thought it was the machine gun. That's obviously something that's played on your mind. Are there any other memories that sort of are common recurrences for you? Or someone who got away, someone who didn't?
Yeah. Oh man, we could spend hours talking about this, Chris. There's a squirter out of a house in Iraq.
What's that mean?
So you go to this building and you like attack this building, and it was a bomb maker, this IED bomb maker's house. And I was, myself and this other colleague of mine were on one side of the house, and we see this guy running down this road. Now we were fairly confident that guy came from this building. And if he came from that building, he's a military-age man outside during curfew and came from a target house. Does he fall within our engagement rules? Yeah, he does. This is like peak war. This is like we're 100% ROEY able to shoot that guy. We didn't. We go to a follow-on target and we get in a pretty good fight. Clearly that guy, and this is an assumption, I don't know this, but I think this guy went and told them that we were coming and they got ready for us to come. That weighs on you. Like, that was my fault. Like, why didn't I just press the trigger and shoot this guy in the back at night? I see your eye twitching. It's a hard question. And it's not a question that I wish my son is ever asked, but like, that's the question that I was asked. I mean, you go back another 10 years, a 19-year-old firefighter EMT, there's this school van, this missionary van that's driving on the 101 and just north of San Luis Obispo, California, just south of Atascadero, California. The driver falls asleep, maybe 70, 80 miles an hour, and the car spins and tumbles out of control. And these women and children in this 15-pack van are just launched out of every single window. And when my fire truck arrives on scene in the middle of the night, I grew up in this area where very kind of agricultural. When we roll up, the dust was still settling. And through the emergency lights and the headlights, it created like a horror film kind of aura, like the dust, you can't see everything, but man, I can still smell the fall dry grass, and I can still smell the no moisture in the soil that was like hanging in the particulates in the air. And I can still hear, we shut off the siren as we roll up on the scene. And I don't know how we didn't run over people because bodies were everywhere. And thank God we didn't. We get out and I see what we call walking wounded. There's people wandering around holding their arms that are like dislocated and broken. You see these compound fracture, this guy like holding his leg. And, but then we hear like the moans of a child, not the screams of a child that is hurt, but the pain is so serious they can't even cry anymore. That's a different sound entirely. And, that truck, we just go to work. I'm a young firefighter EMT. I don't know anything. I graduated from EMT school and the fire academy 6 months ago. And I had this really senior paramedic an engineer. His name was Tom Way. And we start working on all these people, and, we're trying to stabilize these people, and we're trying to triage who's going to be evacuated first. And I remember I hear Tom get on the radio, and he calls to station number 1 because there's 2 fire stations in Atascadero. He's literally like, just send everyone. Like, if they can get on a truck, if they can get on an ambulance, get them here. Every volunteer, every paid called firefighter, send everyone. You got 15 people. Let's just say it takes 4 or 5 people per body. You need a lot of firefighters and paramedics and EMTs. So I start working on this little girl. She's 11, maybe. And everything on her was hurt. Like I couldn't see an inch of her body that wasn't broken. And, I'm strong. I was a professional athlete at this point already. And I can't remember. I remember telling myself, like, how do you touch this girl without hurting her? Like, how do you help her without causing more damage? Like, she's not breathing right. It was like this raspy inhalation with broken ribs. And Tom Way comes over, and Tom goes, I have this, Tim. Go find someone else. And he just pushes me, and it like launches me. And I go and I start helping triage and separating and segregating the people that are going to be immediately transported and the ones that have to be like evacuated directly to the hospital. And I thought that girl died my whole entire life until 4 years ago. And I thought Tom, in his wisdom, was trying to save a young man from the failure of saving this little girl's life. The last sentence of this chapter of my book, when I found in the research of this book that girl survived, was fucking Tom Way. That guy not just saved me, but he saved that little girl. And I play back, had I stayed there, had I been that stubborn boy that I knew that I was, and I tried to save that girl, I would have killed her. But fucking Tom Way. He comes in, he saves this 11-year-old broken girl, and I go off and I do the thing that you'd expect an 18, 19-year-old guy to do, which is like, grab people and carry them to ambulances, and like Harry.
You're a blunt tool.
That's right.
Yeah.
And maybe I lived with that for 25 years I killed that little girl. I get home that night, I'm covered in blood, and I walk in the front door, and I remember my dad, he comes to the door and he's like, Keith Agason, who was the captain at the time, he had called my dad and said, hey, Tim had a real tough call tonight. Just make sure he's okay. And I walk in the front door and I was like, hey Dad, I'm gonna go take a shower, or I'm gonna go to bed. And my dad's like, why don't you go take a shower before your mom sees you? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm just going to go crash. I'm covered in blood and mud. And I was going to go fall down in my bed. And I didn't realize I couldn't walk. I couldn't breathe. And I was crying. I actually never said anything to my dad. I was just trying to move past him to go to my bed. Talk about like emotional and mental overload. And my dad recounting this to me, he's like, you never said anything to me that night. I just tried to move you to the shower to get you cleaned up and then lay you down. And this was the first time that I ever personally experienced, post-traumatic stress. And in my family, we'd experienced lots of different forms of death and trauma, but this was something that was like very me. And I remember like they said I had to go to, a group trauma class. I was like, I don't need to go to that. And my dad's like, bro, you're going to go to that. And yeah.
You've been working with a lot of veterans at the moment on this stuff. What's the current state of veteran mental health? What are you seeing in them? And what about yourself as well?
Yeah. It's been really hard after 20 years at war. There's a feeling of failure. So GWAT, Global War on Terror, Iraq, Afghanistan, North Africa. Now we're standing on the backside of it, and the reason that we're there is questionable. The actions that we took while we're there is questionable.
Support of the people that you were fighting on behalf of is questionable.
Yeah. The people coming home, that should be receiving us as servants to this country are looking at us like abominations, like we're broken things.
That was the same in Vietnam to some degree as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very, very similar. I was just talking to a Vietnam vet about it. He's like, man, it's like I'm living,
right there with you.
Yeah, I'm living through all this again. That's what he said exactly, almost verbatim. He said, man, I know what you're feeling. And so there's regret and they're struggling. Active duty is struggling. Young men first coming back from deployments are struggling. And then men that want to go on deployments, but then missed it because timing is really hard. Like a unit will deploy and you arrive to the unit and your unit has already gone. That unit then has some casualties and returns. The guy that didn't go has a ton of survivor's guilt.
Even though they didn't survive, they missed.
Like
misses guilt.
Yeah. But I mean, it's
the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And those guys are also dealing with a bunch of, like, they didn't actually experience any trauma.
Yeah, but they didn't even get to contribute.
That's right. And it just eats and it eats at their soul, and it poisons the vessel.
So just to interject there, have you got any idea why survivor guilt would exist? Like, adaptively, evolutionarily, what is that there for? Is it that you've seen other people pay a price that you should have paid and you're concerned about not carrying your weight within the tribe? Do you think that's what it is?
Yeah, I mean, evolutionarily, if we look, I should have been stronger. I should have been better. I should have been more equipped. I should have been more capable. All of those things are responses to survivor's guilt. And if you weaponize that, then in a tribe, if the tribe's warrior goes to a battle and he comes back and they do okay, or maybe they could have done better, and he comes back and he has like, I wasn't fast enough, I wasn't strong enough, I couldn't throw my arrow, or I couldn't throw my spear far enough, I couldn't shoot my arrow far enough. All of those things forces him and motivates him to become a better person. So like, I think there's some elements of that.
Mm-hmm. So survivor guilt?
Yeah, a lot of it. And we've done a really terrible thing in America, which is told people that there's easy fixes to hard problems, where you can take a pill and you're going to be better. You can take a pill and you're going to be less fat. You can pick up your phone and you can have food delivered. It's just a lie. And when it comes to mental health and physical health, those things seriously overlap. When people look at me, I think often as I'm a crazy person because I work, how you do anything is how you do everything. Well, I do everything this way so I can deal with all of this stuff that I've seen and I've done. Like I work out every single day because I need to stay healthy. I eat clean. I sleep well. All like the litany of all these millions of little things that I do to make sure I'm a healthy version of myself is so I'm also a mentally healthy version of myself. One of my friends that I was just visiting a couple of days ago, he starts going through a divorce. He stops eating well. He stops exercising, starts drinking a little bit. Like you see the writing is on the wall, and every single one of those steps, it's just one decision. Any one of those things is okay. But when there's 10, 12, 14, 16 of them, then they're all compounding, creating more depression and more instability on the mental health side. He can't cope with it any longer. And then he's like fantasizing about suicide and this easy exit. And he's trying to make, a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And we see it time and time and time again. The only way that you can stay on this side of right is being faithful and intentional in all of these little tiny things. So yeah, I'm spending a ton of time in this area trying to encourage, man, go outside, go ride motorcycles, go be with your kids, go grab your wife, take her on a great date and, like have a great night with her and then have a great night's sleep and then wake up with a smile on your face and go to the gym and then go hop in the sauna and then go hop in a blue cube and do like some legit cold water immersion. And every single one of those things just makes your coat of armor gets a little bit thicker and a little bit stronger. And of course there's chinks in my armor. Like I have days that I struggle but like, I also watch these arrows just like bink, like, pussy, try to launch another one. And I try to give this armor to other people because like it's a really great feeling when you're not living your life in fear and you're not struggling with depression and you're not, it's so freeing to be sovereign.
What are the US Armed Forces getting right or wrong with their post-operation treatment and care for veterans?
Yeah, they're realizing it's a total human optimization, right? Like it's not, hey, I'm going to put this guy in counseling. That sure, absolutely helps. But I'm also going to give them access to great gyms. I'm going to give them access to dietitians. we're going to be revamping the whole entire CZ Cologne, the former SEAC, the senior enlisted advisor, the Joint Chief of Staff. He just recently retired. He has this great program where he's going to go across all of the Department of Defense, and he's a freak athlete, special operations guy, tier 1 level dude. He's going to all of the different different departments and changing how they view food. So like if you walk into a chow hall or the Air Force calls it a dining facility, like there's not a fast food aisle where you can walk up and I want, a cheeseburger with fries. That's not an option. That's not an option anymore. Well, it is right now. You can get like spaghetti and meatballs. No, like go get a chicken and a salad, fatty. And like the soda pops gotta go. All the sugary sides, the desserts gotta go. All that fried stuff gotta go. Like there's going to be some pouty faces about it, but like, that's what you have to do. So they're doing a lot of things right. The military gives a ton of really great tools to a person. They teach them leadership. They teach them communication. They give them grit. They give them the tools to make quick, critical decisions. We also now recognize that we give them bad habits. We give them addiction to caffeine. We give them addiction to nicotine. We give them bad sleep habits. We put them in places just like Native Americans when we put them in the worst plot of land on the planet and hope that they do okay. Like you take a soldier and you drop a soldier into a not hospitable place. That soldier is going to climatize
and compensate.
Yeah, in the place that he's in. Like, have you ever been to Killeen? It's to be a fun experiment for you. So if you drive 1 hour north to Fort Hood, now Fort Cavajos, it's a gigantic Army base that's 1 hour north of Austin. The city that's just adjacent to it is called Killeen. It is the most depressing place on the planet. There's car dealerships that target soldiers with 25% interest rates for their, 2019 Mustangs. There's strip clubs. There's storage facilities that soldier's about to go on deployment. He has to put his stuff in storage and they're like, oh, but you don't have good credit. That's okay.
It's a parasitic industry that's built up around the base.
Yeah. To take advantage of young men that don't have experience or a fully developed brain.
Yeah.
Wow. It's wild, man.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I was talking to Michael Punky Higgs. Do you know Michael?
No, I know that name though.
So he was Master Chief, Master Sergeant, whatever.
Those are two very different things. One's in the Navy and one's in the Army. One's amazing, one sucks.
Okay, I can't remember which one it is. I feel like one of them, is that not the guy from Halo as well? Anyway, he has been doing psychedelic treatment, but he just sort of took me through a bunch of different challenges. And there was a lady that I'm friends with, and her husband's been struggling PTSD post as a veteran. And Ibogaine is the particular substance that they were using. And she and her husband have been battling alcoholism on his side for a long time. He's been trying to cope and back and forth, 12-step program, all the rest of it. And they heard this episode. This is maybe 3 years ago now. And she said, would you be able to put me in touch with Michael? And sure enough, we did. And the husband went and did this treatment. And as far as I'm aware, this is like a rough psychedelic. It's 24-hour, incredibly deep, very existentially painful. And it does resets to the brain that are more powerful than most other, pretty much anything. And now he's back and he's flourishing and all the rest of this stuff. But it's like, it's not a one-stop shop for everyone. No. It's not, I would just throw loads of drugs at them and they'll fix it, change the diet, change the friends that they've got with them. It's this global omni approach.
Yeah. The Army or the DOD as a whole is allowing psychedelics which is wild. Like we're so slow to get there. I have a bunch of friends. I've never personally experienced any drug, but I have a ton of friends that have, traveled outside of the United States because it wasn't allowed here in the United States, and dealt with some really serious trauma via psychedelics, and they came back transformed humans. They were like broken, depressed, suicidal, alcoholics, womanizing, like broken men in every way, shape, and form. And they come back, I'm like, easy, like I literally want to be around you all the time.
Full reset.
Completely. And now they're like back to the amazing young man that I remember 20 years ago.
What do you wish, if there's someone listening that has served, or just someone that's suffering with sort of trauma in their past, would you wish that more people would hear or realize?
You're not alone. There's everybody that has served in some form or fashion, especially in war, is carrying baggage, emotional trauma. And you're not alone, not just that other people experience this, but other people care about you. I think that's a big thing that everybody needs to know, is like, you feel so alone and isolated when you're in these really low moments. It's just not true. Like if you're gone, Michelle Young, this stunning, beautiful staff sergeant in the Army, just committed suicide a couple of weeks ago. She's supposed to be in Las Vegas with us a week. She's been in this community. She's a fitness influencer. She's like blonde and just like bikini supermodel. She committed suicide 2 weeks ago. And her daughter had her 12th year birthday. Says, she's a single mom. Honey, I'm so proud of you. I love you. Happy birthday. A couple of days later, she commits suicide. What was she going through that she felt so alone? And she had to have, right? Unbeknownst to her, there are thousands of people that know her and support her and wanted to be there for her, but she felt alone, and it's just not true. So everybody listening, like, the thing that I want them to know is they're not alone. The other big part is that individual responsibility part. Like we're saying, sometimes you can just start doing little things and tiny little steps that happen consistently over time. When you're in that moment of crisis, you put a little bit of time and space between you and a bad decision, just a little bit. And you wake up in the morning and you walk outside. We've been here in the rain, like I want to go outside and run in that rain so bad, and I want to see the sun come up tomorrow. And I can't wait to go see my 4-year-old tonight on the ice. And I can't wait to go home because I'm making pulled pork sandwiches for the family. And they're going to be dynamite. I can't wait to get weird with my wife. And like all of the things that I can't wait for are because of a bunch of little decisions making me look forward to tomorrow. And even if, I go home and I pull a cork tonight and I pull a couple of drinks and I start thinking about the mistakes that I made, the friends that I've lost, even that bad decision or a few of those bad decisions can't hold up to all of the other things that I've done right.
There's momentum.
That's right. And I want to carry that momentum into life and into hope and into another day.
The problem is that the momentum goes in both directions.
Right.
Right. It doesn't just go when things are going well, it also continues when things are going poorly.
Yeah.
And that's the escalating spiral that people find themselves in.
And I say there's no easy solution, but if you are really in crisis, like 911, there's a phone number, 988 now. You just pick up the phone, hit 988, and it's like the 911 for you being in a bad, unhealthy place.
A risk to yourself.
That's right. You pick up that phone. If you're a veteran, you literally just press the number 1 and it takes you to a veteran that specifically wants to know you and know about you and is trained to talk to you specifically. Wild. We've never had this before ever. Like this just happened this year. Pick up the phone, hit 988, and it goes to a mental health hotline. And if you're a veteran, you press 1 and it goes to a veteran to talk to you.
Wild.
Sick.
Speaking about bad decisions, what was that story of ISIS making a credible threat against you?
What a bunch of cowards, though. So this is like peak caliphate. ISIS is taking over northern Iraq and they're starting to gain ground and they're capturing people and art and American arms and they're selling it on the black market. And like a bunch of land that we had fought for, we were losing to ISIS. They were also trying, they had radicalized a whole bunch of mosques in the United States. And I get a call from the FBI saying that ISIS was trying to recruit somebody locally to find me and my family and where we lived to come and kill us. And I was like, can you say that again? And the guy's like, yeah, they're trying to find somebody locally to kill you and your family. I was like, that's fucking sick. That's such great news, dude. I've been traveling all over the world. And what you're telling me is that these idiots are going to come to my house in Texas. So I call my friend that works for Fox News. He's like, hey man, can you put me on live? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, check it out. So my address, so I get live on Fox News and I say my address live on Fox Television. I was like, you can send absolutely anybody that you want to my house to try and kill me and my family. Just know that you're never going to get them back. I'm going to kill them all.
How did this go down with your wife?
She was so mad at me. Yeah, she's like, I'm out. And she like popped smoke just for like a day. But then she came right back because, you know, I got the goods. And no, not really. She was really mad. But it wasn't surprising that they, of course, they're so tough when there's like 20 of them and they're attacking a village that's unarmed with a bunch of little girls. They don't even like deal with one man that would like stand up. When I say like be that somebody, in every situation, it always only takes one person. Fear is contagious, but so is courage. You know, when one person stands up and is like, no, this is wrong. And then somebody else is like, yeah, there's something off about this. I agree with that guy. And then it just like a tidal wave of courage just spontaneously combusts amongst all these people. And they're like, fuck no, you can't do this. You know, I had hundreds of people being like, we'll sit up on your street all night long. You know, we're setting up rotating guards. And I was like, I don't want that, man. I need a CONUS kill. Like, what do I got to do?
What's a CONUS kill?
Oh yeah. So, when you go outside,
remember you're speaking to a muggle.
Yeah. When you go outside of the continental US and fight abroad, you are OCONUS.
Right.
So like fighting and killing a terrorist in Afghanistan.
Right.
That's just like a war.
OCONUS.
Yeah. OCONUS. But if you're in the United States and let's say you're in Covina and you're at a Christmas party and this terrorist that has been radicalized walks into this Christmas party and plans to kill everybody because they think Christmas is bad because it has to do with Jesus, you know, and they're like, ah, la, 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 and you're like, pow, CONUS kill.
Right.
Sick.
Have you got one? No. Ruined it.
Yeah. Loser.
And was there ever any more comeuppance about that?
Nah, the FBI was pissed at me for a little while. The news was pissed. My wife was pissed.
But you were excited.
I was
well armed.
I was hopeful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You immediately went on whatever it is, like bigguns.com and got more.
No, I didn't need any more. Yeah. Hope's not a plan. It just didn't pan out to be anything. Super funny story. I was in the USADA, the United States anti-doping pool because I was a professional athlete. And I was driving home during this period and I see this car, and I kind of lived in this area that there's not a lot of through traffic. So I see this car, you know, following and makes a turn. And like 5 turns later, they're on my street and they slow down as I turn in my driveway, and he pulls up in front of my house. And by the time, you know, he puts his vehicle into park, he has a gun at his face.
Right. You would have shot the USADA guy.
That's right.
I imagine
there's I'm USADA. And I was like, all right, let's go get my piss.
I imagine that there's a lot of athletes that would have probably quite liked to have shot the USADA guy.
Yeah, they were.
Pretty sure John Jones would have probably been able to shoot the USADA guy. That would have been a solution for him.
Yeah. I don't think he needs any more drama. What a talented athlete, though.
BioFire. Have you heard of this?
Mm-mm.
So it's a smart gun that was invented by a guy who started working on it after the Aurora Theatre shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Fingerprint and facial recognition.
Lame.
And it only fires if the right person's. What do you think of smart guns?
Lame.
Why?
I don't know. They're stupid. I don't want that. So can my wife shoot my gun?
You add users to the profile.
Yeah. Who controls that profile?
You, supposedly.
Just you? Like safes that I'm only supposed to access unless the FBI calls the manufacturer and gets permission to gain access to my safe without a subpoena or a warrant? That happened this year.
Probably not as secure as that. You got subpoenaed to...
No, I didn't.
Right.
This was something that happened this year. I'm just giving an example of...
Okay.
if anybody else has. So this Second Amendment thing, nobody gives me authority to this inherent right for me to protect myself and my family. The government is not saying that I get to protect me and my family. This is my God-given right to protect me and my family. This is not somebody has access to a program to give me the tool to protect my family. I just have this right, and I should have access to any tools that I deem necessary to protect myself, my family, my property, and even more by extension, freedom. So against a tyrannical government, but government overreach. It's not just like hunting, sports, and me and my family. This is hunting, sports, me and my family. And if the government gets too big and gets too nosy into my life, this is what happened in 1776. Like, we were pretty cool until we weren't cool. And then you guys started asking too much of us. And then we said no. And then we killed all of you. I know this is a hard thing.
It's a very difficult day for me. I've survived 2 July 4ths since I've been here. I actually wore a t-shirt that said, "Happy Treason Day, ungrateful colonials."
Yes.
I wore that on July 4th last year.
Yeah. It's a hard thing to wrap yourself around unless this is what pumps in America, should be pumping in Americans' blood. It's like, we are rebels. We have always been rebels. You cannot tell me what to do. There's nothing that you can say to me. Every single one of those beautiful amendments in that fantastic, one of the best pieces of words ever put together in history is the Constitution. And it says that those are our God-given rights, and nobody has a right to control those. The freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, like overreach to you coming into my home, like due process, the right to bear arms, all of those things are my rights. So like, no, I don't want a system. I don't want a fingerprint. I don't want facial recognition. I want a cannon. And I want a Gatling gun, minigun attached to my motorcycle. And I want a tank, and I should be able to have it.
I'm pretty sure the Black Rifle guys have got a minigun attached to a Tesla.
We did that.
Is that you?
Yeah, I mean, no, that was Matt and Jared.
Right. But you've played around with... Right, okay.
We were trying to talk Elon Musk into building a trebuchet that would launch a Tesla.
At what?
At anything.
An enemy.
No.
Oh my God, they're shooting
Teslas.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. I mean, any electric vehicle should just be launched into the stratosphere, except Teslas, because they're pretty fast.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the state of the American education system. This is something you're spending a lot of time thinking about and assessing at the moment.
We'll go to the genesis of it, which is, as an employer and as a senior non-commissioned officer, me looking at the people coming to work for me in either one of these occupations and looking at this population of this generation and being like, you're dumb. Like, you literally are an idiot. You can barely read. You have no way to collaborate. You have no creativity in you. Like, there's not even a speck of genius in there. And there's no grit. There's no teamwork. You've been taught how to be a consumer. You've been taught how to sit there as a lemming and go through some systems and processes of like, sit here, use this pencil, use this paper, write this way, do this thing, you get this grade to take this test to then say that you've passed that level. How is that applicable to real life? How can somebody go through public education and then think that they're going to be usable in the real world as a creator, a designer, a teammate in any form or fashion in any industry? They're not. They've not been taught anything useful. They don't know how to balance a checkbook. They don't know how to change a car tire. They don't know how to fill up a car. They don't know how to, they know nothing about the world. They don't know how to do a spreadsheet for a profit and loss statement. Like, the second graders in our school take a product, they design the product, they take the product to market, they market the product, and then they go back to the school and they give a presentation about the performance of that product in the market. So we had this adorable little girl take a bunch of mason jars. She went and bought kinetic sand, and then she went and bought toys that were themed. She took a loan from her parents for $200, and she built a bunch of these mason jars. Some had astronauts and like space things in them. Some of them had like mermaids and fish in them, and she used blue sand. Some of them were like green sand and brown sand with dinosaurs, and she sold them for $25 at the farmer's market. She made a couple $1,000s. She paid her parents back the few $100s that she took a loan from.
All in.
Yeah. And then she went back and briefed her P&L on the performance of her product.
How old is she?
She's 9. Right? And do you know what I would do for a 20-year-old that could do that? She's a 9-year-old. And I argue that the presentation from that 9-year-old is 1,000 times better than any resume that's come across my desk in the past 5 years. 9-year-old. In that same time frame in this project, we had a kid that went to his parents' ranch, and he would spend hours in the afternoon collecting antlers and horns from all the different wild exotic animals that they have on their property, and he was building furniture with them. So he made like a lamp, and he cut them and put screws on them so you could use them as hardware for like dressers.
Right. I was thinking that you were going to say that a 9-year-old had tried to construct a chair. That might be a high risk thing to sit on. I'm not sure how. Yeah.
Really cute, usable things. And of course, his dad helped him. And he took this and sold those things, launched an e-commerce market, and was selling them online on Facebook Marketplace. He was selling them on, he had like 3 or 4 different online ways for him to sell it, and made a few $1,000s. And then we had this other kid that went and took sticks, and he thought that stick looked like a gun. And then he tried to sell that stick as a gun, and he sold no sticks. And he went back and he saw his 2 classmates that made thousands of dollars that put effort into their products. And then he sat there embarrassed, and his parents were mad. And it's perfect, because that kid just learned the best lesson he could possibly learn, which is failure and what it looks like to have effort and discipline and intentionality, and somebody that actually practices the process of what we are teaching them about how to launch a product. And in his embarrassment, then motivated him to go and do better on the next release. But he learned that lesson at 9. I learned that lesson at 35. So Socratic and project-driven learning. Socratic, this is not new, Socrates, this idea that this learner-driven environment, you take a bunch of young people and you allow them to lead the education process. So they're making millions of decisions in a day. What chair they're going to sit on, what pencil or pen they're going to use, what kind of paper they're going to use, if they're going to be using an iPad to be taking their notes. Ultimately, like, they have to perform. Like, here's the things that you have to do. If you want to go outside and play, okay, show me your work. You didn't do your work. You actually have to sit back down and do your work. They're pissed, right? Well, you're over there in the corner bouncing on that little Bosu ball, not doing your work, but Johnny is over there, and he sat down, he put on his headphones, started listening to his music, and he knocked out his work, and he's already outside playing. So in a day, they're making all of these, hundreds, if not millions of little decisions on their own. They're not being told where to sit. They're not being told how to do the work. They're given the tools. They're guided. So we don't have teachers in the studios. We have guides in the studios. And just like Aristotle and Socrates and Plato, all of them were guides. They were literally like mentors to these young learners trying to learn how to critically think. And 3 years ago, we opened school number 1. Last year, we opened our online mentorship program when we recognized that this is working. We just need to give the keys of the castle to as many people as possible. Then from my partner, Matt Boudreau, just a dynamite hard worker, like everything that you'd want in an educator, realizing from the online mentorship program that the benefits of the brick and mortar environment that is conducive to learning, how do we give not just intellectually everything that they need, but then also physically, like, hey, here's a space for you and your family. And family is a key word here, because we really do believe that the nuclear family is the strength behind a young person learning. Like, if you think that you could take your kid and just drop him off and you're going to be given back the product that you want without you putting some form of effort, and if you don't have skin in the game, if you send your children to Caesar, you will be given back Romans. I don't want a Roman, right? I want to be intimately involved in what my children become, and nobody cares about them more than me. So as the online mentorship program exploded, this year we'll open 50 new apogees in the United States. And then I promise next year we're going to open 200 more. And then the next year we'll open 500 more. And I will defund and abolish the Department of Education in the next 5 years. Like, it's going to happen.
What's the problem with what they're doing at the
They're not
moment?
doing anything. When was the last time that you've seen an American school? The kids are not learning how to read. They are failing math. Our ASVAB scores, I hate that I have to keep
What's
going.
ASVAB?
It's the military entrance exam. It's like your SAT when you graduate to see how you stand against all of the other kids at your grade level on an equal playing field to get acceptance into college, except that those acceptance levels are different per gender and per skin color. That's idiotic, but that's the way it is, not merit-based. That's a completely different conversation I'd love to have, but it's not the one that we're talking about right now. The test for kids going to the military, we were talking about how fat they were and how mentally unhealthy they are, and also like their substance abuse and some criminal history. They're also dumb. The ASVAB scores have been dropping every year for the past 25 years. So the kids are getting dumber.
You have a litmus test, you have a yardstick, and measured against the same thing.
Yeah.
That changes. But the difference...
And it looks like this.
And presumably the ASVAB is being fucked with less than entrance exams for universities because those are more malleable.
Yeah, this is just a standardized testing that's given. The exact same test has been given to, millions of kids at this point across this nation for past
decades.
Yeah, for decades.
So you've always got this barometer that you can measure this generation versus 20 years ago.
Yeah. So like
not good.
Not good. This is a problem. And then, when you look even here in Austin and Texas, Florida, they really are, and I really hope that Texas does push through the school voucher program. Arkansas already did it. Florida is going to be doing it. The school voucher program is, so if you own land here, you pay property taxes. That property taxes pays for the school that is in your zip code.
Yep.
If your kids don't go to that school, it doesn't matter. You still have to pay for that school that you don't use. But what if you have kids and then you pay for those kids not to go to that school? You pay extra, and then you pay the same amount as everybody else in that zip code for that school to exist that your kids don't use. So you're paying twice for education, even though you're only using half of it. The school voucher program is, there's money allocated per child, and that money is a tax credit that's given back to the parent so they can use the money how they best want to for their child. Maybe it's to send them to public school. Maybe it's to send them to a specific kind of school because that kid needs a specific kind of education. Some of it, like whether it's going to be Montessori or it's going to be Socratic or it's going to be like whatever the form it's going to be, it's going to be tailored to that child, and the money's going to follow the child. It's been brought up in Texas multiple times, and it's almost passed multiple times. So the Apogee program, Apogee Strong Online, apogeestrong.com, our school here, Apogee Cedar Park. So we're a North Austin school. We have, anybody can apply. Like literally, we're taking applications right now for 2024 school year. And every corner of this building is magic. There's giggles, there's laughter, there's joy, there's Harry Potter, there's comic books, there's drawings on the walls, there's engineering schematics, there's new designed tanks.
How well, at what age do you take them up to?
I mean, college.
Right. And how well are I don't know whether you've done this yet because of how short amount of time you've been around.
We outperform everybody in every metric of measurement.
Including college applications?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Our kids dunk on everybody. They literally make everyone else look silly. So when you're at the university and you're in reviewing all of the applications, and You have, okay, this is SAT score. This kid is coming from this school. You know, he or she graduated with this GPA. They were involved in these extracurricular activities. Cool. And you're comparing that against all other kids in that same format. And then you get a packet. And this kid has been started his own business. He is apprenticed in this very specialized program. He has letters of recommendation from these Fortune 500 companies that he has been working for and advising and consulting. He also has higher scores than everybody over here, and he has the same GPA as everybody over here. But for some reason, his essay is so dissimilar to everybody else over here because it's real and life experience.
So it's the standardized testing that I think people have skepticism around, whether it be...
First of all, those should not exist.
Standardized tests.
How does that help you?
It is the equivalent of the ASVAB, that you need a barometer up against. You can measure everybody else in a way which is standardized. Or else it's like, okay, well, this person wrote an essay and this person did a piece of art. Yeah. How many pieces of art is this essay worth? It's the reason we have currency. We have currency to make ease of exchange and comparison.
But if the whole entire point of this entire organization is to prepare this population for the test, compared to this group of people that is preparing the entire population to be constructive, contributing members of society, but then still perform the same on the test, which group of these two comparable groups, which one would you like to select from, A or B?
Well, yeah, obviously that one.
Obviously, but right?
If you can achieve the same, you still need the test at the top to be able to.
It's the easiest thing, and they perform at the same on the standardized testing. And I'm even arguing that they so surpass all other metrics, all the ways that you can measure their performance. They end up being not even comparable. It's like apples and oranges. It's like these useless kids and these like extraordinary anomalies and these unicorns that like you can't hire and accept fast enough. That's currently what we're experiencing. So, and there's data because we're not the first school to do this. This has been, Acton here in Austin started it.
Acton Academy, Montessori.
Just Sandifer. There is lots of heritage data, legacy data to support this. So it's not like I'm creating anything new. I did not create anything.
Doing it in a different way.
I literally just I took a lot of the best of a bunch of different forms of education, and then I made sure that family was the center and the nucleus of everything. So like we go after the parents. Like if you think that you're going to be part of the Apogee family and you're not a hardworking, fit, intentional father, like you're joking yourself. We had thousands of people apply to open schools, and we literally just like opened an Instagram or Facebook and we see a fat-bodied, soft dude that's sitting there pulling a Bud Light. Next,
Imagine your kid not getting into school because of you.
As it should be.
That's interesting. It's interesting to think that when your child goes to school, you go to school again as well.
Yeah. Or at least care, at least like want to be. Yesterday, I laced up my skates, grabbed my hockey gear, and hopped on the ice with my 4-year-old and my 8-year-old. Do you know how long I've been on the ice? For as long as they've been on the ice.
Right. Do you suck?
I suck.
Yeah.
I'm terrible.
Okay.
But man, I can, that's not true. I'm literally better than every single dad there. Every single one of them.
Because they're not on the ice.
Because they're not on the ice. I was playing tag with my 4-year-old on the ice yesterday. And I watched a bunch of YouTube things, and there were specific drills I was trying to do while I was playing tag with my 4-year-old, like I'm skating forward to turn left and then skate backwards and then turn right and skate backwards. Like those were all specific drills that I had looked up. So I went onto the ice with intentionality, not just to play with my daughter, which I wanted to do, but also develop as a person and as a skater so I can in some way, shape, or form at least show my kids that I want to be involved with them. Mm-hmm. And I was wearing half lacrosse gear. You know why I own lacrosse gear?
Because you fall over a lot?
Yeah, because my kids play lacrosse.
Right.
Like I've never played lacrosse. I've never played hockey. But I'm going to do it because they're interested in it. Like if my daughter, please don't start, but wants to learn how to play the cello.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna fucking learn how to play the cello.
What are the principles for raising kids that you've discovered that you think most parents don't realize?
Time. They don't care about their stuff. They don't care about how clean your house is. They don't care how the rest of the world views them. They care about how you view them. They care about the time you give them. They care about what meal you cooked for them. They care about what games you were sitting there cheering for. The first, it takes about 20, 30 minutes to get dressed to play hockey. So my wife will leave first with whichever kid is going to be playing, get them ready, get on the ice, and I show up with the other kid 20, 30 minutes later. The first time that the kid that's playing scores a goal, the very first thing that they do is look up into the stands to see if dad is there. My big girls, the first time that they went on stage for whatever their performance were, and they looked out in the audience and I wasn't there because I was overseas. Do you know what kind of damage I did to those girls? The A/B test here of me being here for every single one of them and me being absent for every single one of them. Thank God their moms are amazing and they're those girls are just incredible and their resilience is astounding. But
swimming upstream without dad there.
That's right.
Yeah, I remember I was a swimmer in school, and I've got this memory seared into my mind when I won the backstroke at the end of this big competition. And I looked up and dad was there. Crazy.
Yeah.
So fulfilling.
Yeah.
There was an idea I came up with after I sat down next to Tucker Max at dinner about 9 months ago or something.
Love that guy.
So he's a good guy. He's cut from the same cloth as you. So I'm going to take you through this now. So it's called the Fuck You Family.
Okay.
Fuck you money is a meme, but it's also a truth. There is an amount of wealth that you can achieve where typical restrictions and conventions no longer apply to you. You don't need to suck up to the gatekeepers. You don't need to do things that you don't want to do. In extreme situations, you don't even really need to follow the law. Similarly, fuck you freedom is kind of downstream from fuck you money, but also can be achieved through cultivating a lack of resilience on other groups. There are no restrictions on where you can travel to and when and for how long. You don't need to show up to work on time or work at all. If you're sufficiently well structured, you don't even need to care about the state of the economy or the power grid or the wider world. But I've recently learned about another type of fuck you liberation, one which is significantly cheaper, more accessible, more common, and maybe even more powerful. The fuck you family. Many fathers I've spoken to have told me about how their priorities were completely changed upon starting a family. All the previous status games they played seemed petty. The admiration and gamesmanship they used to play in an attempt to impress people in power or those with status seemed juvenile and shallow. Much of their anxiety around whether people liked them or thought they were cool evaporated. The only people they needed to care about impressing were now asleep in their house. To their kids, they were the coolest, richest, strongest, most heroic person on the planet, and that gave them a very powerful type of liberation. It seems to me that much of what young men get up to are surrogate activities until they finally find a family. This isn't to say that all fathers become placid soy boy hippies or that having kids neuters your ambition, but it definitely seems to open up a new realm where they care far less about the flotsam and jetsam that used to occupy their lives.
Bro, that's it, man. That's it. But that's also the definition of sovereignty, though. It's I keep hammering this idea of sovereignty. There's nothing external that can touch anything internal, and internal is me and my family, the nuclear. There's no government body, there's no medical organization, there's nothing that can affect my family. And I love it's profane, but this fuck you idea, it's so to the point and it's so on the nose and it's so correct. And there's nothing else that more important. I totally agree. Once you recognize this, that guy driving the fancy car that gets out, that's he seems so pathetic. And the guy that's hey, I just got this new raise at work. I just got this promotion. I'm I pity you. I feel sorry for you. The guy that's trying to build a brand and looks so good online, his social media, he has, a couple 100,000 followers right now. And I'm just I want you to experience that, because that is indescribable. That I can't, like, that is a drug that can never, you can't have enough of. Like, you'll never be satiated from the thing that you get from giving back to your family.
What would you say if there's fathers listening who don't think they have that, they haven't been fulfilled? How can they reconnect with their kids and that sort of sense of purpose for their family?
Yeah, I mean, the little bits, like, there's not a handle that you pull and all of a sudden, like, how many practices do you go to a week? How many games do you go to in a month? How many afternoons while they're doing homework have you sat there at the kitchen table with patience and grace and tried to help them? And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know what 5 + 5 is or 5 × 5 is? Like, every one of those opportunities is an opportunity either hit or missed. And when you take a step and look, like, there's thousands of them in a month, and just start hitting more of them, 1% more, and then 2% more. And fortunately, like, if you've been a bad dad, all you can do is go up. Like, all you can do is get better.
The bar's set quite low.
Yeah. Like, I try really hard to be a good dad. And I go to my wife, like, last night, as we're having like pillow talk time, it's like, how can I do this better? How can I be better? And, she's like, more time. Everybody wants you to do something for them, but we want that too. And how you allocate that time, I realize that you can't be you without doing these other things. If the Bahamas kick off with this terrorist group that's taking advantage of
the Bahamas.
Yeah.
Like,
anywhere that there's money in tourism, there is criminal organizations that are looking for opportunities to take advantage of them.
Okay.
Venezuela could pop off. Central America, even Peru with Ecuador and Venezuela and Brazil.
Honduras, all right? I'm going there next week.
Yeah, it's fine.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You got my
Tim
number, though.
Kennedy. Yeah.
Okay.
Tim, you said the terrorist weather report came back negative for Honduras this week. I would like to tell you that your predictions were incorrect.
You enrolled. So there's a program called STEPS, which is the state something. What does it stand for? It is the Department of State's tracking of you as a tourist traveling abroad. So you get notifications from Department of State.
You told me about this before. Yeah. It's literally like a weather report for how dangerous is the place.
It's an important thing to do, but that's before you leave. But then once you're overseas, they know that you're there. So they ask for like your travel dates, like what day do you arrive? So then a person like me, when I go to Department of State and I say, okay, how many Americans are currently in Israel that are tourists that need to get, because if you go to October 7th and we didn't know if this was going to go high and right, like, is Hezbollah going to be coming in?
You said that you predicted it being more kinetic than it was, which it's still very kinetic, but you thought it was going to be way worse.
Well, Israel, man, I know people get so mad at it. Israel's done a really good job keeping this not going full regional warfare. Hezbollah wants an excuse to come in. The Houthis want an excuse to come in. Like, every single one of the pro-Hamas, Iran, Taliban, Al-Qaeda, every single one of those organizations has been looking for an opportunity and enough popular support for them to come in. Israel is doing the best that they can to target specific terrorist sets in Gaza that conducted the most heinous sets of rapes and murders and tortures and current. I mean, it's probably since the Holocaust. This is the worst thing that we've seen happen to the Jews since Hitler was gassing them. And so Israel is doing the best that they can with the really difficult situation that they're in. But I thought that the North Border was going to kick off. I thought that the West Bank was going to kick off. I thought that Egypt would gotten a little bit spicy on the south border. I thought Jordan would have gotten a little bit more. So the reason that we were there, of course, was to get Americans out. But like, had it gone a different direction, which is this slow grinding war, Hamas wanted this to go kinetic. That's what they wanted. That's why they did it the way that they went. Like, the reason they went out and raped everybody they could and tortured everybody that they could is because they wanted a overwhelming and overbearing response by the Israelis. with an overwhelming response by the Israelis, would have given them a ton of propaganda to then go to all of the other nations and be like, look what Israel's doing. These disgusting murders. They've killed tens of thousands of us poor Palestinians trapped in here. You're the ones that did this. But that's what they wanted. And now that it didn't happen, now they're kind of like, crap.
What were your thoughts after spending time with Vivek? You got to catch up with him recently.
Dude, I love that guy.
Why?
Because everybody has their beliefs. I have my beliefs. And I think I know why I believe what I believe. He can articulate why. I got a bunch of time with him. And he can explain not just the reason that he has those beliefs, but then he can also articulate what he thinks the solution is to the problem. That is a very different thing than what's currently happening in politics, right? So somebody goes up there, like Trump gets up there and he's like, blah, 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 blah. And then Biden gets up there and he's like, blah, 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 blah. And they're spouting all this rhetoric, but who is walking up and be like, this is what I believe. This is why I believe it. This is the solution to the problem. And I'm going to articulate the steps for us to be able to accomplish it. I'm blown away by the depth of his understanding in a world that he's never worked in, which is the American government. It's crazy.
Yeah, he verbally is incredibly fluent, like very, very canny communicator. I like some of the stuff I've seen on Twitter where he does his debate prep videos. Have you seen this? And it's him topless doing like forehand smashes on the tennis court or doing burpees in his house. He calls it debate prep. And it's, a counter signal against the fact that he is taking care of himself physically, which I don't think he can say for much of the rest of the presidential race.
Or Kennedy. Kennedy looks good.
Kennedy's jacked. We had dinner with him.
Yeah.
And he's a big boy.
Yeah. There are some rumors that Trump was looking to Kennedy as a running mate. And I was like, what would that look like? I'm just so frustrated with American politics right now.
Well, it's about to get more intense the next, 9 months.
Yeah.
Why? Why are you so frustrated?
We're after Pearl Harbor. The leading general of the Japanese military is quoted in saying, "We have made the worst mistake possible. We have awoken the sleeping giant, which is the American people, and we gave them unity." And America united is like an insurmountable force. Nothing in history has ever experienced or seen what we can do when we're together, from World War I to World War II. And then you see what happens when we're broken and divided and fractured, and when the Vietnam and GWAT and our current economy and mental health and obesity and the broken family. And both sides, like the Republicans and the Democrats, are just fighting for portions of a pie, and not even portions of a pie. They're fighting on these outlying groups of these radical ideas and playing into these fringe beliefs, but not even paying attention to like the core ideas that are America. And I would really like a united America. And I think we're way more united. There's like 5% on either end that are pretty radical. Like, no, you should not be cutting body parts off of prepubescent children because they think that they're a thing that they're not, and they're born the wrong thing, And similarly, like, you should not go and kidnap a governor because she doesn't align with your political beliefs. Like, from the far right to the far left, these are fairly obsolete groups. The other 90% are like, man, I want to live my life. I want other people to live their life, like, cool, you want to marry a dude, that's fine, like, don't tell me what to do with my kids and don't tell me what to call you, because like, that's my choice and that's my belief. So as long as your beliefs don't extend into my beliefs, we're good. As long as your freedoms, and you can have any freedoms that you want, don't extend into my freedoms, because I should be able to have any freedoms that we want. I think most Americans are like that. But right now we're just being segregated and divided by ideas, and these identity politics is just so petty and so pathetic and so divisive.
If it's not, the thing that I keep on asking is like how much of this is coming internally and how much of this is being motivated by out of country actors.
Yeah.
At the very least, they're stood on the sidelines cheering.
Oh no, not the like they're paying, millions of bot accounts that fuel the algorithms. Social media companies are also seriously to blame for this. Tech companies, Google, Facebook, Meta, Instagram. It's wild that we could be like, well, Twitter's kind of doing okay. But besides them, YouTube, all of them, the way that the algorithms work is they want conflict. They want people to stay and to comment and to like and to share and to get enraged and get pissed and be like, no, you're stupid, and then they say they have these community guidelines, but the truth is they want people to stay on there and use that medium longer. So of course, our enemies are sitting there pumping funds and pumping resources and pumping fake accounts into those conversations to sway the idea one way or another, while the tech companies are wanting that to be chaos and anarchy because they benefit from it, because they get more money on the marketing dollar side. And all the while, the only people that are being hurt by it are the people. So that sucks.
And internally, in terms of the politics, it's just small land grabs and backbiting. Yeah. I found out I had Dean Phillips on. He was the guy that founded, he discovered Belvedere vodka and then built it and sold it with his family, and then did Talenti Gelato as well, and built it and sold it. 2 massive exits, and he's now running for the Democratic nomination up against Biden. And I spoke to him, and he was telling me that current Congress people spend more time raising funds, like 25 hours a week, just raising funds, because it's an expensive game to be able to play, that they spend more time doing that than they spend doing anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Our political system is broken. And the funds that they're raising are coming from PACs and super PACs, and they're coming from lobbyists. Like, yeah, I'll donate if you do this thing.
So scratch back. Yeah.
Yeah. That all has to go away. Elected officials being able to be in the stock market. Nope. Elected officials with more than 2 terms in office. Nope. The Pelosi's that have never had a real job in their entire adult life, and they came in to make $120,000 a year, but they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. There's a problem, and the problem is our American political system. It's like all of that has to go away. And if it doesn't happen, we're our beautiful republic, I think, is at jeopardy.
Yeah, it's scary. It's crazy as well, because obviously I moved over here and I have loved my time in America. It's so good. The culture is fantastic. The people that I found are fantastic. I love Austin as a city. And it seems like that is swimming upstream against structurally what's happening in education. I don't know anyone who looks at the American education system, even the most ardent supporter of the current thing, and goes, yeah, we're really doing this right. No one thinks that it's happening well at the moment. And then the same thing goes when you look at politics. No one, no matter which side of the fence, goes, apart from maybe the people that are invested in continuing to keep that going the same way, looks at it and goes, yeah, this seems like a really good way to position a super powerful free nation. Yeah, exactly.
Put that in my pocket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it really does seem like putting all of the difficulties in the way of something that's supposed to be really great, and just curtailing it and nerfing it and neutering it and shaving off the edges over and over and over and over again. But there's only so long that can keep happening.
Yeah, I'm more of like what I want to do with the tax code, which is take the whole entire thing, douse it in diesel, and then burn it. And then from the ashes, we can build something new. That's what I want to do with kind of the education system and the political organization in American politics.
One step at a time.
Yeah, I mean, one fireball at a time. Yeah, I don't think like the gradual steps of change are going to work right now. Of course, there's big things. If you added term limits, if you added age limits, if you removed lobbyists, if you removed super PACs, if you removed corporations being able to contribute, if you removed the quid pro quo behind the scene deals.
Is that something you see in your future? Would you want to make
No.
You don't want to make a step into politics?
No.
That's not Senator fucking Tim Kennedy?
No. There's like a period of my life that I don't think could be understood by most Americans. There's leaving active duty, and when I was fighting professionally, also working as a contractor for government contracting, those are hard things to explain. And it will come public, and then
okay.
And then it's
interesting. Tim, I appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming through.
Appreciate you. Thanks for being flexible for weird times. We're busy dudes.
Always.
Workout, boxing, swimming, and some electric motorcycling.
All of that sounds great. Where should people go? They want to keep up to date with the stuff you do.
The Constitution. I should reference that first. And then Tim Kennedy, anything with a verified thing. Anything else besides that is not me.
All right.
So
Tim,
that's it.
I appreciate you. Thank you, man.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that episode with Tim, you will love my 2-hour-long podcast episode with the one and only David Goggins, which you can watch right there.